उपस्थित हो गए, जो हमारे आज के माननीय स्पीकर है श्री उत्तम कुमार शर्मा जी। मैं जैसे उत्तम जी के सामने ही बोल देता हूँ, मैं ये कहता हूँ कि अगर आपने इनका लेक्चर अटेंड कर लिया तो ऐसा शायद ही कोई क्वेश्चन होगा जो इनके लेक्चर से बाहर होगा, जो आपको फॉरेस्ट सर्विस के इंटरव्यू में पूछा जाए। आपने बीटेक किया है आईआईटी बॉम्बे से मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग में। आपका बैच है 1999 और आपका कैडर है मध्य प्रदेश। और मध्य प्रदेश में आपने बहुत सारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट में एज डीएफओ काम किया है। फिर आप इंदिरा गांधी, आपकी जो ये सॉरी इंडियन फॉरेस्ट सर्विस की जो एकेडमी है देहरादून में, वहां पर आपने प्रोफेसर रहे 7 इयर्स तक। उसके बाद आप डायरेक्टर थे पन्ना टाइगर रिजर्व के 2 साल के लिए, और अभी डायरेक्टर हैं कूनो नेशनल पार्क के। और आप 99 बैच है, लेकिन सारे कैंडिडेट्स के लिए इंस्पिरेशन है। अ, आपका नॉलेज तो सबको इंस्पायर करता है, लेकिन आपकी फिटनेस, वहाँ जो कैंडिडेट्स ट्रेनिंग करते थे एकेडमी में, वो कहते थे कि उत्तम शर्मा सर हमसे भी ज्यादा फिट है, हमसे भी ज्यादा रनिंग कर सकते हैं। तो ये सब चीजें भी आपको इंस्पायर करेगी। मेरी सभी फ्रेंड से रिक्वेस्ट है कि इस लेक्चर को ध्यान से सुने, और जो भी आपके डाउट्स होंगे वो सारे डाउट्स आप यहाँ से आज क्लियर करके जाइएगा। इस लेक्चर को आप एंजॉय कीजिए। सॉरी उत्तम जी, थोड़ा आपका समय मैंने ले लिया। मैं उत्तम शर्मा जी से रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि कृपया आप अपना लेक्चर स्टार्ट करें।
मैं अपनी स्क्रीन शेयर कर लेता हूँ। राहुल जी, दिख रहा हो स्क्रीन पे तो जरा बताइएगा।
जी जी जी, दिख रहा है, दिख रहा है।
ओके, जस्ट अ मिनट में। हम्म आई थिंक अब अभी सब दिख रहा है ना, स्क्रीन दिख रही है?
जी हाँ, जी हाँ।
ओके, धन्यवाद राजू जी आपका फिर से मेरे को इस लेक्चर के लिए बुलाने के लिए। एंड आई वेलकम all the IFS aspirants to this lecture of mine. Uh, I have a presentation to make. It's a presentation, I think, which will run for an hour or so. And I can take question in between also. I can take question in the end also. And uh, see, the time is not a limit here. I mean, we can. Today is Sunday. I'm free, so I can speak as long as you wish me to speak, and there are questions to answer. So let's start. Shall I start? Somebody can respond if
Yes,
they're
sir.
getting my voice and seeing the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll just go through this overview of forestry, wildlife, and biodiversity, including environment. I mean, and I'll be talking about how it's being managed in this country. Little bit of history, not too old history, but recent history. I'll be focusing that how the administration of forest or wildlife or environment or biodiversity has evolved in this country and what is the current status. Then probably we'll be also talking about what are the current issues related to forest, wildlife, biodiversity, and environment. Any specific topic, if you feel like I should be discussing, you can later on you can inform me. I'll be happy to talk about the issue. So just to give you an idea that what this country thinks about forest, wildlife, and environment, this is one of the judgment of Supreme Court, and I'm quoting Supreme Court because Supreme Court uh, always guides legislature as well as the administration that in what direction we should move on. So this is one of the judgment, uh, famously known as Sariska case. There's a mining issue, and Supreme Court gave this judgment in this case in 1991, and this is one of the quote of the judgment. It says that the government above big businesses, and this is one of the code the Supreme Court lifted from US Judiciary. So it says that the government above big businesses, individual liberty above government, and environment above all. And Supreme Court has followed since 91, I'll say, At least since 91, even before 91, Supreme Court was quite active in all this. But since 90s and early 2000s, Supreme Court has behaved or mannered in this manner only. It has put environment above all. Whatever I'll not say that the whatever forest and wildlife we are having at present solves only because of Supreme Court, but it has made a very big contribution in protection and conservation of forest, wildlife, and biodiversity of this country. Let's look at the. I'll start from the biodiversity on Earth. I mean, we are having around 5 to 10 billion species of plants and animals. It may be 30 million, 100 million, any number can be, but that is assumed at this point in time that whatever knowledge we are having, it's around 5 to 10 million species possible on the earth. Only 1.77 million species have been identified so far. Most of them are animal species, 70%, 22% plant. Out of animal species, 75% of insects have been identified, and then the higher plants and fungi and all. And species extinction, again, this is happening and happening very fast. So this is a rate we say that the 1 million species already extinct, and 2 million species in next decade will go extinct. And the rate of extinction, why we're talking about extinction? Because it is felt at this point in time that the rate of extinction has increased because of different reasons, especially because of climate change and change in local environment. If you look at the biodiversity of India, see, India is having nearly 2% of the geographical land of the world, but it has more than 8% of the world biodiversity. And these are just detail you all may be knowing or must have read it somewhere, that this is the detail of the biodiversity of India. So India is a very rich biodiversity country. Uh, One of the 17 mega biodiversity um, country in the world. Out of 34 globally identified biodiversity hotspots, we are having four. We are having 104 national park, 551 wildlife sanctuaries, there are 54 tiger reserve. Then there are conservation reserve and community reserve. I'll also go through what do they mean when we say national park, wildlife sanctuary, tiger reserve, and all, because at times people get confused in all these terms. I'll be discussing it a little late. But this only shows that the whatever biodiversity, first we are having good biodiversity. More than 8% of the world biodiversity is in India. We are having 17, one of the 17 mega biodiversity country in the world, and then we are having four biodiversity hotspots in this country. And at the same time, we have done, I'll not say enough, but we have made attempt to protect this biodiversity by making national park, protected areas, and different reserves. Now, if we look at the resources, forest resource in terms of what ISFR report we are having 2021 IFSR report. So it gives data, just a minute. Yeah, it gives data regarding what are the forest area and what is the forest cover of this country. And there's some simple term, I think all of must be knowing what do this term mean. Recorded forest area of country is around 76.74 million hectare. It's 23.34% of geographical area. And when we say recorded forest area, it means that the area which has been recorded as forest in government records. Okay, so this is forest area in government record. So that is known as recorded forest area. So it is reserve forest, it is protected forest, or it may be unclassified forest. But this area has been recorded in government record as forest. Okay, so that is one other thing, recorded forest area, and it does not include forest on revenue land. See, we are also having forest on revenue land. We call them revenue forest area. It when we say recorded forest area, which has been mentioned in ISFR, it does not include forest on revenue land. So recorded forest area means only reserve forest, protected forest, and unclassified forest, that is as recorded forest area. The second thing is forest cover. I mean, the SFR also mentioned a term called forest cover. So forest cover is around 71 million hectare and 21.7% of geographical area. And when we say forest cover, it means that any piece of land more than a hectare having more than 10% of the tree canopy, that is known as forest cover. Now, forest cover, when we say forest cover, then it may be inside recorded forest area, it may be outside recorded forest area. So forest cover is not about what kind of land we are talking about. Forest cover is about a piece of the land is more than a hectare and canopy density is more than 10%. Okay, so we'll have to differentiate this. The recorded forest area is about area, recorded in government record as forest, and forest cover is not about area, it's about forest cover. Then tree cover, whatever is less than a hectare, so more than a hectare forest cover, less than a hectare is tree cover, so it's around 3% of geographical area. And if you add up this forest plus tree cover, nearly 24.62% of our geographical area is covered with trees, where the canopy density is more than 10%. Then, sorry, what happened? Yeah. Then you have scrubland of 1.42%. Scrub is less than 10% of the canopy density. So about 10% of canopy density is forest or tree cover, and less than is known as scrub. So if you add up forest plus tree cover plus scrub, it comes out to be around 26% of the geographical area is under forest or tree cover or under scrub. So that is the current situation in our country as per Indian State of Forest Report 2021. Any question on this? Any clarification somebody needs? Okay, good. Yeah, somebody has raised hand. Shubham Kumar Singh. Yeah, go on, go on.
Hello, sir. Good evening. Shubham this
Yeah,
side.
yeah,
Sir, actually, there is a term called greenwash in ISFR.
yeah.
So, what that means?
See, that is, I mean, you get data from satellite, and that's a procedural term. You can say that the green was the area comes in different colors, and then you change it to green color. I mean, the area which is depicted in green color is known as greenwash. I mean, uh, that's a technical term used in analyzing while you analyzing and converting it to the actual numbers. So it's a technical term. I probably also will not be able to answer you exactly what it is greenwash, but it's a procedural term. It doesn't have to do with the, I mean, final forest cover or something like that.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah. Then when we talk about forest and forest, we're not only talking about trees. Forests give different kind of ecosystem services, and all of you must have read. There are four kind of ecosystem services we say that the forest provide. One is provisioning service. There are direct services like timber, fuel wood, uh, minor forest produce and all. Then there are regulating services. So when it regulates the temperature, the humidity and all. Then supporting services, it's nutrient cycle, the pollination and all happens because of forest, and their cultural values also, because people are also involved with the forest, the tourism and other service sector activities that forms the cultural services of ecosystem services. So forest is not tree, it is a mix of all different services which we as a human require. So uh, now, if we look at the environment governance, what kind of environment governance we are having in this country. So there we divide the environment or forest and wildlife governance before independence and after independence. So uh, India has a long history. I mean, we have Arthashastra written 300 BC when there was a mention of forest administration. I mean, historically, it says that there's a first written record when there was a talk of forest administration. So there were used to be a conservator of forest, and there used to be punishment for killing an elephant. It seems that there was death penalty for killing of an elephant. So the India has a long history of respecting forest and wildlife and also managing them. But the current administration, the current form of administration which we are having in terms of forest, wildlife, environment management comes during the British time. It's all started in 1865 when first Indian Forest Act came into being. And then in 1895, 1894, first National Forest Policy came into being. So 1865, when first Indian Forest Act came into being, the main purpose of that act and later of the policy is to exploit the forest to generate revenue, because India was quite naturally rich and there were species of trees which were good to be used as timber, especially the teak and the sal, in central India or probably in coastal area, and also southern part of the India also, and in northern and Himalayan region there were devdar and cheer, which are also useful as timber. So the British government at that point of time tried to manage the forest because it thought that they are good revenue source. But they did not only use the forest to generate revenue, they managed it scientifically. The purpose was not to finish the forest by cutting all the trees. Purpose was to manage the forest on scientific lines so that they can get revenue in perpetuity. So that is a kind of scientific forest management British has started. And in 1865, they came out with this first Forest Act, and Forest Act was necessary because until unless you have act, you cannot protect the open piece of forest. So they brought this 1865 Act, which was revised in 78, uh, and then after 1878, they also brought this Wild Animals and Bird Protection Act of 1912. So they initially they brought this Forest Act, which only dealt with mostly trees and forest, but in 1912, this Wild Animal and Bird Protection Act, it also talks about wildlife. But it was not about protecting wildlife or birds. It was just that certain period of the year you'll not kill. I mean, a hunter will not kill, or a breeding season people will not kill. Certain area where people will not kill. Only those kind of certain conditions are there in this act, but mostly it was not for protecting animal from hunting and all. The hunting was allowed. Only certain part or certain activities during certain seasons were banned. Then came the 1927 Indian Forest Act of 1927. So whatever earlier act was there, Indian Forest Act of 1865 changed in 1878, they finally all merged in Indian Forest Act of 1927. And this act we are having at present also, and it is the basic act of Forest Department to manage the forest land, whatever we are having. So Indian Forest Act, if you look at the Indian Forest Act, it mainly deals with few of the definition that the uh, what do you call a forest producer, what is a forest produce, and different other definition which may not be of your use. But one of the important definition is forest produce, that what will constitute a forest produce. Surprisingly, there is no definition of forest. The forest has not been defined, and if you look at the history of this, it was only the 1865 Act, the first act which had defined forest. But when it was amended in 1878, when the 1878 Act was brought in, they dropped the forest definition because it's very difficult to define forest. As soon as you try to define forest, you will find that some piece of land either you exclude, which needs to be included, or you include such piece of land which may not require to be included inside the forest. So defining forest was a dangerous thing. So since 1878, once the definition of forest was dropped, it has never been included in any of the act of this country, any of the forest. So at present also none of the act defines forest, that the what is forest. So that is the one thing you'll have to keep in mind, that the forest is not defined in this country. Then uh, the Indian Forest Act also talk about formation of the, how do you form reserve forest, how do you form protected forest, and you can note it down that we'll have to differentiate between protected forest and protected area. Here I'm only talking about protected forest, and it's a different term from protected area. Okay, so this act, Indian Forest Act, deals with the how a piece of land can be declared as a reserve forest or protected forest. So there are these two kinds of basic forest which has been envisaged in Forest Act, the reserve forest and protected forest. So you can think in those, the difference between two is that reserve forest are forests where rights of people have been settled. So you won't find any right existing inside the reserve forest, or if at all some rights have been given, they are notified. Okay, So reserve forests are piece of land where no rights of the people will exist. Only few user right may be given to some of the people to use certain benefits of the forest. That's it. But no land right will be there inside reserve forest. So it's a highest kind of protected area where none of the rights of the people or villagers will exist inside it. On the other hand, protected forests are those forests where rights of people exist. Okay, and those rights of people are yet to be settled. So in reserve forest, all the rights have been settled. Okay, and most of the rights, I mean, government purchase those rights or extinguish those rights. In protected forest, rights of the people have not been settled. The rights are still there, they are yet to be settled, but still the area is called protected, it declared as protected forest, so as not to have new rights inside that area. So once an area has been declared as protected forest, new rights cannot be generated in that area. Whatever rights are existing, that's all right. Government will note the right that these people are having these many rights. There is a piece of agriculture land, the grazing rights and all, but no new rights can be accrued. So that is the benefit of declaring as area as protected forest. What is the ultimate aim of the government? Government feels that once initially we declared an area as protected forest and we'll stop any further new rights in this area, and then we'll settle the rights of the people who are already inside the area, and we'll try to settle the rights, and we'll declare finally this protected forest as reserve forest, because reserve forest is the forest which is the higher pedestal in terms of protection. Then third is this Indian Forest Act talks about what are the offenses inside the forest. So it talks about felling of a tree is an offense, trespass is an offense, different kind of offenses it defines. And then also it talks about powers of forest officers. What are the powers of forest officers? The forest officers draw their power under this act. This is the main architect of, I mean, the architecture of Indian Forest Act. In four points, I have tried to summarize. Now, this is before 1947. Only, I mean, thing is that the Indian Forest Act of 1927, which we are having at present, came, and it was existing when India got independent. Then after 1947, after independence, in independent India, we have this National Forest Policy of 1952. So independent India first policy, otherwise second National Forest Policy. But again, in this forest policy, there was a talk of generating revenue from the forest, because India was a revenue scarce country at that point of time, and forest was seen as resources. Timber was used in many fields. So main focus was on revenue generation, even though this policy also talked about covering 33% of our geographical area uh, under forest. Okay, but main focus was on generating revenue from the forest. Now, if you look at the uh, between 52 and this 1972, the decade of 70s saw lots of movement in terms of forest, environment, wildlife. Between 52 and 72, nothing happened for 20 years. But then again, this Stockholm conference happened in 1972, which was in making for last 3-4 years. It happened. Our Prime Minister Indira Gandhi at that point in time attended the conference, and this is the first UN conference on human environment. And it first time it discussed the how environment is getting affected by human activity. Uh, Before that, there's no talk at international level that there is an effect of and on environment due to human activity. This is first conference, the Stockholm conferences, and it recognized these three things. First is it recognized that there is an interrelationship between social, economical, and ecological aspects. Okay, so you cannot just say that the socio-economic are interrelated. The ecology is also interrelated. That is the main focus of this conference. And later on, whatever international conferences have happened after 1972, this aspect has already always been held that there is a relation between social, economical, and ecological condition. Then second thing which was recognized is there's a right of every person to have a quality environment. Now this is again very important, because before that there was a, I mean, this was not recognized. There was understanding that the environment is, I mean, it's a thing which you don't have to bother too much. But in this conference, it is accepted that every person is having a right of quality environment. And later in 90s in India also, it has been included in fundamental right under Article 21. And there is a talk, there was also a talk of intergenerational equity. So it says that we'll have to protect the forest, wildlife, and environment, not only for this generation, but we'll have to hand it over to the next generation. So in terms of intergenerational equity, there was a talk of environment. Important conference which change the course of future environment administration or governance all over the world, not only in this country. So as I said, that our Prime Minister attended, and the result of it is uh, in 1972 we have seen that the Wildlife Protection Act came into being. Even though again it was in making for 2-3 years, Wildlife Protection Act, but because of a Stockholm Conference, it was pushed and it came into being in 1972. Again, uh, this Wildlife Protection Act, if you look at the what is there in Wildlife Protection Act, first thing is did that it banned hunting. Okay, even though ban actual execution of that ban took nearly 20 years. Okay, so till 1992 there was no as such ban because of I mean there are lots of I'll not say loophole, but there were lots of clauses or sections in were framed in such a way that they
Dia
gave
mau
lot.
oh sakal
Yeah, somebody's
dia
voice is
সেটা ওটা
somebody's voice is
এটাতে fill up করা রাখা
I think Sarbajit voice is coming. Can you just mute yourself? Yeah, yeah, okay. Uh, so yeah, so hunting ban on hunting, even though the act talked in 72, but it took nearly 20 years when finally it came into practice. Otherwise, this Wildlife Protection Act, it talks about formation of national park sanctuary. Now Tiger Reserve, I mean, Tiger Reserve was added in 2006 amendment. Conservation Reserve and Community Reserve, those were added in 2002 amendment. Now I'll just talk about what's the difference between national park, sanctuary, and tiger reserve. Uh, see, first national park and sanctuary. These are the two original terms which were there in Wildlife Protection Act when the act came into being in 1972. As I said, the conservation reserve and community reserve, they were added in 2002 and tiger reserve in 2006. So the difference between national park and sanctuary is uh, very minimal. I mean, both of them are more or less same. Only thing is there are certain rights which can be allowed in sanctuary. Okay, certain rights in terms of that the people can have land rights which can be allowed inside the sanctuary. So a sanctuary may have certain, you can say, houses inside it, certain people living inside it, a village inside it. It may be allowed when you finally declare a sanctuary. But in national park, again, like reserve forest, all the rights are to be settled. So in these terms, national park is again on a higher pedestal. Sanctuary, certain rights can be allowed. Okay, so and just to give you an idea that how do we form sanctuary and national park, there are two notification. One of them is called as initial notification, another one is called as final notification. So if government wishes to declare an area as national park or sanctuary, comes out with a notification which is known as initial notification, and it says that this area around say 1,000 square kilometer government intends to form a national park or a sanctuary. When government decides to form a national park and sanctuary, any private land can be included in it. Okay, so that's very unique, peculiar kind of thing, that any private land, even if my house is there, my house can be included in initial notification. The government wants to make this area which includes my house or your house as a national park and sanctuary, because government feels that these are ecologically important area which needs to be protected. So there comes an initial notification which will talk about this 1,000 square kilometer art. The next step is then it will appoint an officer which is known as settlement officer, and which will decide the rights of people and settle the rights of people. Okay, And after settling the rights of the people, there comes the final notification. Final notification means that finally this has been declared as a national park and sanctuary. So as I said, the national, declare, while we decides the right of the people when we are forming a national park, the rights of the people are totally settled, but there cannot be any right of the people inside the national park. They will be settled, and final notification, there will be no land right inside the national park or any other kind of right inside the national park will be there. In case of sanctuary, while the officer decides about the rights of the people inside the sanctuary, it may allow certain people to continue the right. That is the freedom given to settlement officer. So in sanctuary, when the final notification comes, it may happen that the few people are allowed to continue their right. Okay, so that is the basic difference between national park and sanctuary. Again, one more thing which is the basic difference. The grazing can be allowed in sanctuary. A settlement officer can allow grazing inside the sanctuary. It may allow grazing of a few cattle, some whatever number decides. So the villagers can graze the sanctuary area. But in national park, no grazing rights can be allowed. So settlement officer, however, he wishes to allow grazing inside the national park, but the law says that the settlement officer cannot allow grazing inside the national park. So national park, in that sense, there will be no land rights, there will be no grazing allowed. But in sanctuary, there may be certain land right which may be allowed, and there may be grazing which is there in the sanctuary. That's the difference between national park and sanctuary. Now comes the third term, tiger reserve. Now, tiger reserve, if you look at the Wildlife Protection Act, can read the section also is 38V. It says that only national park and sanctuary can be declared as tiger reserve. That's the first thing. Okay, if an area has been declared as tiger reserve, it has to be national park or tiger reserve core. Okay, okay. Before coming to that, a tiger reserve is having two parts. One is core and buffer. Okay, so the difference between core and buffer will highlight. So tiger reserve core, a national park or a sanctuary can only be declared as tiger reserve core. I'm talking only about core. Okay, so the rest of the forest area which is not national park and sanctuary cannot be declared as tiger reserve core. If we are talking about tiger reserve core area, that means it has to be a national park and sanctuary initially. Okay, that's one thing. Then buffer area is multi-use area. We say that it's a multi-use area which will be peripheral area to the core area. So buffer area may include any area. So any other forest which is outside national park, means national park and sanctuary, they may be surrounded by forest area. There may be other forest area. So other forest area may be declared as buffer area to tiger reserve core. And tiger reserve is a combination of both core and buffer. So core area has to be national park and sanctuary, and buffer is area surrounded by surrounding a peripheral area of the core. Okay, so that is that. Try to understand it in those terms. And legally, it came into being in 2006. So since 2006, we are having tiger reserve legally. And then you're having conservation reserve and community reserve. As I said, they were added in 2002. Conservation reserve are areas where these are government lands and which are important and connecting to national park or sanctuary. So important government land from the point of view of wildlife view, forming a connection between two wildlife sanctuary or national park. They may be declared as conservation reserve. But the restrictions are not to have the right settlement will not take place. It's just a forest area, the government land. Government says that these are conservation reserve. It doesn't settle right on those people. Whatever activities are going on will keep on going. Nothing of that sort will happen. Only it will be recognized as conservation reserve. Community reserve is the private land when community comes forward and say to the government that we want to declare this community land as community reserve. So government declared that piece of land as community reserve. Why this is important? Because in Northeast, lots of communities are owning forest, large chunk of land large chunk of forest land, but they don't have money to invest in those forest land. So until unless government supports them, they find it difficult to get money to manage those areas. So if they come forward and declare those areas as community reserve, the government gets involved into it, and they can get the government funding as well as the government protection also. So these are the two different concepts which have been added in 2002. So any clarification on this? Any doubt on this? National Park, Sanctuary, Tiger Reserve, and all. So people get confused at times. Okay.
Hello,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Sir, in order of reserve forest, national park and sanctuaries, and biosphere reserve, which gets highest priority? Like, what is the descending order of priority in this?
Okay. See, reserve forest, there is no concept of higher priority or something like that. See, reserve forest is a piece of land which has been declared as reserve forest under Indian Forest Act. Okay, that's the a thing, and reserve forests are declared only over those land which are where the government is the owner of the land, or government is having any proprietary rights over the piece of the land. So if government owns a land, so suppose there is a revenue land and government wants to declare it as a reserve forest, government will come out with the initial notification that if you want to declare it as a reserve forest, it will settle the rights and finally reserve forest. So that is reserve forest, and in the reserve forest, there are certain activities which are prohibited, and if somebody violates, there is a punishment for that. So reserve forests are declared under Indian Forest Act. When we talk about national park and sanctuaries, these national park and sanctuaries are declared under wildlife protection. And national park can compare, a reserve forest can further be declared as national park. Okay. Means a piece of land is already a reserve forest. Now government wants to make it a national park because this is ecologically important from the point of view of wildlife, it is important. So government wants to declare it as a national park or sanctuary. So a reserve forest or a protected forest, which are there in Indian Forest Act, can further be declared as national park and sanctuary. So a reserve forest, if it has to be declared as a national park, because in reserve forest you already settled the right, it's very easy to declare that as a national park. Reserve forest means all rights are settled. In a very short period of time, government can declare that reserve forest is a national park. Only thing is that when you talk about Wildlife Protection Act, National Park Sanctuary, the punishment is higher. So when we talk about reserve forest, that means we are only talking about Indian Forest Act, and certain activity, if somebody fells a tree in reserve forest, which is declared an Indian Forest Act, the punishment may be up to 1 year or 2 year, maximum up to 2 years. There is no, I mean, the maximum punishment is up to 1 year or 2 years, depending on what state you are working in. But in case of national park, if you fell a tree, the punishment may be up to 7 years. So the punishment is higher if we are talking about Wildlife Protection Act, something which is under Wildlife Protection. Otherwise, there is no difference as such between reserve forest and national park. But if a piece of land has been declared as national park, it means that it ecologically is important because of certain wildlife, because a certain animal is there, certain the concentration of wild animal is there, or maybe certain important vegetation is there. So only on those consideration, it can be declared national park. As I said, the national park can also include private piece of land. So when it includes private piece of land, then government has to still the rights. But in a national park, the punishment is more, and that's why you can, if you want to say it comes first on priority or on higher pedestal. I mean, you can say that. Again, when you talk about tiger reserve, the restricted few punishments are more stricter in tiger reserve. Otherwise, you declare national park and sanctuary as a tiger reserve only. there is no difference. Only difference is that there's some stricter punishment in if the area is also a tiger reserve. So it's the same reserve forest. Above it has been made a national park. Above it has been made a tiger reserve. So if it was only a reserve forest, the punishment was 1 year. If it has been made as tiger reserve or national park, the punishment has been increased to 7 years. Now, if it is a tiger reserve, it's still strict here. Even the punishment is 7 years, but there are certain activities which are not as punishable as in national park, those are also punished in tigers. So in those terms, I mean, you can evaluate that biosphere reserve is not a legal term in India. It's only a term which is used in, I mean, executive, you can say that in discussion and all. Biosphere reserve is not a legal term, not used in any of the Indian Act. So biosphere reserve, if you do something, there is no violation of anything. Well, there is nothing prohibited in biosphere reserve because no act is about biosphere reserve. So there is no punishment if you do anything in biosphere reserve. Got it? Any doubt on this?
Sir, I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Sir, I read a news report that in Simplipal National Park and Kangar Ghati National Park, community forest rights were recognized.
Yeah.
So how this happened in National Park, sir?
See, now you have jumped to Forest Right Act. Probably we'll wait till I reach Forest Right Act and we can discuss Forest Right Act and
Okay, okay, sir.
okay,
Yes.
okay. The
Yes.
community right, when you talk about community rights, about Forest Right Act. Anything regarding this? I think all doubts are clear.
Good evening, sir. Sir, one more question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, in case of national park, just confirming, even the MFP is not allowed.
No, nothing is allowed.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Only for bona fide livelihood use, something can be allowed. Okay, if people local, I mean people who are living at the periphery, only for bona fide livelihood use, things can be allowed. But otherwise, nothing is allowed.
Excuse
Hello,
me,
sir.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I
Sir,
had one.
okay, please
Should
go
you
on.
continue? I'll ask later.
Okay, thank you. Sir, as you
Yeah.
mentioned that a tiger reserve core area must be a national park or wildlife sanctuary initially. So
Yeah.
there are certain tiger reserves like Palamu Tiger Reserve in Jharkhand, which is not mentioned as a national park in the national list of national park. However, we have some other tiger reserves like Dudhwa Tiger Reserve, which is in both the list, like national park as well as tiger reserve. So how come this difference comes between?
Oh, see, it is not possible because the act says that Tiger Reserve core area has to be a national park or a sanctuary. Okay, so it is not possible that it is not a national park or a sanctuary. It has to be. It would be national park or a sanctuary. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
No,
Anything else?
excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I had one doubt. Sir,
Yeah.
in Indian Forest Act 1927, we
Yeah.
have reserve forest and protected forest. So just for
Yeah.
clarification, sir, both of these are defined by the government very well. But the only
Yeah.
difference is that in protected, people continue to have some rights, whereas in
Yeah.
reserved, all the rights have been taken away. That is, they have been settled, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
by saying that rights have been settled, it means that rights have been taken away from the people, right?
No, rights are settled. Like you construct a road, now the government is constructing road. Their houses along the roads which are shifted somewhere else, or the people are compensated. So their rights of the people are settled when government takes that road. And there is an act also, Fair Compensation Act of 2013. So similarly, when we talk about settling rights of the people under Indian Forest Act or Wildlife Protection Act, rights are settled. The rights are compensated. People are compensated.
So, sir, say for example, if in protected forest, I want to construct a road which is passing through a house of some person.
Yeah.
So in that case, we are saying that we are not constructing the road right now. But if the government wants, they can do that at a later stage. And in that case, they will be compensated for that. In that case, it will be like settled and then can be shifted to reserved part. Is it so?
So see, if somebody is having rights in protected forest, okay, the area which has been declared as protected forest, if people are having rights, those rights will be settled in a sense that the people will be compensated. Okay, now if government wants to construct something like a road or a dam or something else, then again there are rules that these roads all be constructed inside protected forest. Otherwise, government just can't, without settling, cannot construct all these things. If a road is to be constructed inside protected forest, then there are rules. There is an act, Forest Conservation Act, which governs that how a new road will be constructed inside the protected forest.
Sir.
Okay.
So then what is the difference between these two then, reserved versus protected, if people continue to have rights?
No, in reserve forest, people do not have rights. Reserve forest means the rights are already settled. In protected forest, people are continuing their rights because they are not been settled. That is the difference.
Right, sir. Okay, got it. Got it. Thank you, sir.
And when we talk about protected area again, it's a legal term defined in Wildlife Protection Act. And protected area, when we say protected area, it's in Wildlife Protection Act. It is different from protected forest. Protected area means, as the act defines, national park, sanctuary, conservation reserve, and community reserve. It doesn't talk about tiger reserve also. I'm talking about the legal definition of protected area. Protected area means, when you're saying protected area, it means national park, sanctuary, conservation reserve, or community reserve. Okay.
Right,
So
sir.
this is protected area. So Wildlife
Thank
Protection Act, I mean, also talks about offenses and all. The hunting is an offense, trade is banned, destruction of habitat is an offense, trespass is an offense. So different offenses is prescribed and also prescribe the punishment for those offenses. It also talks about management, how the management of these parks, national parks, sanctuary, tiger reserve will be done. How the hunting and all, tourism and all management works about it. And it also gives power to forest officer to execute the Wildlife Protection Act. So this is about Wildlife Protection Act, which is an important act from the point of wildlife. And recently we had this few amendments to Wildlife Protection Act. And here I cited this CITES 1973. After 72, in 1973, this Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Fauna and Flora happened. And India is a signatory of it. In 1976, India signed this CITES. It's about international trade in endangered species. And this India as a signatory had to brought in some of the legislation. So India could not brought it for nearly 45 years. So now in the latest amendment to Wildlife Protection Act, India has brought this CITES into Wildlife Protection Act. So now CITES is a legal, uh, uh, legally included in Wildlife Protection Act, and it has given more strength to control on international trade and endangered species of fauna and flora in India. Okay, so this is a recent amendment has been done. I'll not talk more about CITES, since it's about international thing, but the thing is that India not only thinks about protecting its own biodiversity or wildlife, it also is very much concerned that the international trade in wildlife and all should stop, because it's a high value trade. The international trade in wildlife is considered to be third or fourth largest in the world. So India is concerned, and it has given it a legal shape by bringing it in Wildlife Protection Act. So this is CITES. I mean, so already discussed about it. Then in 1974, I said that the 70s saw lots of things after Stockholm Conference regarding forest, wildlife, and environment came into picture. So Water Act came in 1974, and then came the one of the major shift in terms of 42nd Amendment in 1976. I think all of you must be knowing this. The forest and wildlife subject were transferred from state list to concurrent list, and protection and improvement forest wildlife were included in directive principle and fundamental duties. It's a major amendment, and the why there was a need to bring it in concurrent list, because earlier it was in state list. And forest, see, biodiversity is there, wildlife is there because forest land is there. Trees are there, biodiversity is there, wildlife is there because we are having forest land. If you lose forest land, nothing will be there. There will be no biodiversity, there will be no wildlife. So the most important thing is that you have to have the forest land with you. And forest being state subject before this amendment, state government used to divert the forest land as when an whenever they wish to divert the forest land, if people have encroached the forest land, state government used to give it before election. So you just encroach the forest land. It happened in Madhya Pradesh and many other states that the people will keep on encroaching for 4 years. On the 5th year, when the election are due, the government will regularize the encroachment. It will denotify that as a forest land. So government were losing forest land very fast. Every state was losing forest land very fast. What to talk about biodiversity and wildlife? If you do not have the land, if you lose that land so fast, then how will you have biodiversity and wildlife? And central government was having no control over it, because it was a state subject. So in this amendment, it was brought to concurrent list, and by bringing it in the concurrent list, there came an act which is known as Forest Conservation Act of 1980. There was a political turmoil, so it took nearly 4 years after the amendment from 76 to 80. Otherwise, it would have been brought much earlier, because there was a political turmoil during those times, so it could not be brought. The idea was to bring this act, and what this act did, that it took power from the state government to central government in these 4 cases. Okay, so what do you mean by these 4 cases? That if a forest land is to be de-reserved, suppose there is a reserve forest and a protected forest, and state government want to de-reserve it, it wants to give it to the encroachers, or it wants to use it, give it to somebody else, it want to de-reserve the forest land, state government cannot do it now after this act. It has to take prior permission of central government. If state government wants to use forest for non-forestry purpose, like a road is to be constructed, a dam is to be built, a mine is to be operated, state government cannot do it without the prior permission of central. If a forest land is to be given to a private party, again state government cannot do it without the central government. And if there green felling is to be done in any other forest, it has to take permission of central. Only for these 4 things and little restriction. There is no prohibition. It says that the state government can do all these things, but only thing is it needs to take only central government permission. And that is this act about. And as soon as this act came into being, came into being on 24th October 1980. It saved the forest land like anything. I mean, the rate which was earlier, if you look at the diversion of forest land or loss of forest land between 1950 and 1980, it was nearly 2 lakh hectare per year. We lost 2 lakh hectare per year between 1950 and 1980. And after 1980, the rate has decreased to 40,000 hectare per year. And we are not losing land, because it says that the forest land will remain, even if you divert the forest land, the status will remain forest. So those kind of things. But the rate of diverting the forest land for different developmental purposes or for different purposes, it has been reduced by 5 times after the enactment of this act, because central government does not give such easy permission. And after 96, it is further reduced because Supreme Court also came into picture. I'll be discussing about it. So this is a major act. One of the shortest act, only 4 sections are there, but one of the major act which saved the forest. 81 saw this Air Act coming into being. Then there is again one very infamous, unfortunate incident happened in 84. The Bhopal gas tragedy happened. But it led to lots of, again, churning in forest in an environment field. 1985 saw the creation of separate Ministry of Environment, Forest and Government of India. Otherwise, before that, it was under the Ministry of Agriculture. So since 1985, we are having Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change now. 86 saw the Environment Protection Act. That was a result of Bhopal gas tragedy. And there was amendment done to the Water Act and Air Act also. There are lots of delegated legislation and the Environment Protection Act. Lots of, you can see all those the delegation, the legislation rules which have been made under Environment Protection Act. Every aspect of environment has been covered under Environment Protection Act. 1988 saw the revision of forest policy, and till 1988, I mean 1952 policy talked about more of revenue generation from forest. Now in 1988, the language was totally changed. Nobody talked about getting revenue out of forest. Everybody talked about these three things: environmental stability, ecological balance, and creating massive people's involvement of people, especially the local community, in saving environment and managing the forest. So 1988 is about national forest policy is about more about environment stability and ecological balance rather than talking about generating revenue from the forest. So the whole policy focus was shifted in 1988, and that is the current policy. I mean, after 1988, we don't have. This is the latest policy. We don't have any other policy after this. Now we also use a term called sustainable development. This is a term first time officially used by this Berlin Commission report in 1987. Just I think the commission was formed in 83 or 84. It gave a report in 1987, and it used the word sustainable development. It says that there are lots of harm is made while the world develop, lots of harm is being made to environment. Ozone layer was already going on that point in time issue, and it put lots of focus again on environment and development, the relationship between environment and development. And finally this report led to the UNCED, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, which happened in Rio in 1992. And there are some non-binding and binding agreement which happened. Non-binding were I think Agenda 21, the forestry principles. There were three non-binding agreement which happened, and there are three binding agreement which happened. These are the three binding agreement which this slide shows, which happened in Earth Summit. First was UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It's a binding agreement. Any country signing this agreement was bound to have the I mean, the country was supposed to act on this. Then another one was combating desert, Convention on Combating Desert, CCD, and third was a Convention on Biological Diversity. I'll not be talking much about UNFCCC because all of you must be knowing it. First the Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement further on. I can take question on that, but I'll not be discussing much on that. So these are the three binding agreements which are signed. India also signed all this. I'll talk about CBD because we converted it into a legislation. So 196 countries joined this Convention on Biological Diversity. And what this convention did, it changed the concept of rights over the state biodiversity. See, before the signing of CBD, biodiversity was considered as common heritage of mankind. Every international convention recognized this fact that the biodiversity is a common heritage of mankind, and no country should have a separate statute, separate law, so as to restrict the use of biodiversity by anyone in this world. So that was the status before 1992. But after 1992, this convention, it was first time recognized that every state is having sovereign rights over their biodiversity. And why this was recognized? Because it was realized that lots of exploitation of biodiversity was happening if we take it as a common heritage of mankind. There was no control of the state over their biodiversity because we are thinking that as a common heritage, and especially the exploitation was happening in poorer states which were having less resources. So rich countries giving few resources were using biodiversity and exploiting biodiversity, devastating their biodiversity. So first thing is it said that the state will have sovereign rights over their biodiversity, so they can frame new laws to protect their biodiversity. And India also formed this Biological Diversity Act of 2002. And this Biological Diversity Act of 2002, it talks about three things. It talks about conservation, it talks about sustainable use, and it talks about fair and equitable sharing of benefits. So Biodiversity Act is about these three things. And we'll have to be I mean clear about this, and we'll have to think in those terms that we are when we talk about biodiversity, it's not only about conservation, it's also about use, but the use has to be sustainable. Okay. And it's not only use may be done by people who are rich and powerful. It also talks that the will use, but will give fair and equitable share to the people who have protected biodiversity and who are protecting biodiversity. Most of the time, you will find that the people who are living in and around the forest, they know about the biodiversity, they protect the biodiversity because it's of their use, they use it locally, they have traditional knowledge, but the use of or the benefit of the traditional knowledge is not reaching to them. So this act talks about that we'll use the biodiversity in a sustainable manner, but at the same time, we'll try to share the benefit with the people who are living in and around the forest. So it's not only about conservation, biodiversity is to be sustainably used with equal, fair and equitable sharing of benefits. And I mean, there is a recent amendment done in Biological Diversity Act also, which will be implemented from 1st of April, just 13 days after. And means we can also talk about if in question answer session, if you have any doubt or any question regarding those amendment, if you've gone through the amendment, if you're having any doubt. But there are certain aspects which have been changed in those amendments. Then after this Biodiversity Act came the Scheduled Tribe and other traditional forest dwellers recognition of Forest Right Act. In short, we call it Forest Right Act of 2006. And what it did that it recognized the rights of people, individual rights and community rights inside the forest. Now this act again become very controversial in a sense that I have just told you that when reserve forests were formed, see reserve forest, we started forming, the forest department started forming reserve forest from 1865 act, 1865, 1878, then in 1927 there were processes, the same processes, the how do you form a reserve forest. Now as I have explained that when you form a reserve forest, rights of the people are settled, they are compensated. Now, if the rights of the people are settled, then why there is a question of again recognizing the rights of people inside the forest? And that's why this act was criticized by forest department, those who think about forest in those terms, that why there should be a need to re-recognize the rights when already the rights have been settled and reserve forests are formed. Reserve forest means that the rights are settled. But this act in itself says that there are historical injustice which has been done. What it means that it says that when rights were settled in forming the reserve forest, people's right was not recognized the way they should have been recognized. Because of lots of illiteracy was there, the administration was mostly British. So we can't just think of a situation when tribal people living close to the forest, they'll go to a British officer and ask for their rights inside the forest. So the government said that there was historical injustice which was done while settling the rights of the people while forming the reserve forest. So there is a need to review those things and again will resettle the rights. That was the concept of the act, but they put the deadline as 13 December 2005. So they say that those who have occupied the forest land before 2013 December 2005, their rights will be recognized. What it means is that if you have encroached the forest land on or before 13 December 2005, your rights will be recognized and you'll be given the piece of the land. And your agriculture rights will be recognized and you can do agriculture on that piece of the land. So in that terms, it is controversial, but it's a law. Government has passed a law. Government thinks that it's a right to do things. So it's a law and we're doing it. Similarly, there is a talk of community rights also. So not only individual rights of agriculture, but also community rights. The act says that because the government is or the communities are involved with the forest and they've been managing, not in terms of scientific management, but they are managing the forest in a certain way. They're using the forest in a certain way, like they're collecting MFP, like they use the forest for grazing, for collection of fuel wood and all. So it says that these rights of the people are also recognized. The community as a whole will be given these rights, and they can use these rights inside the forest. It is not that these facility they were not using earlier before this act. See, the collection of fuel wood, collection of other MFP, the grazing, everything was happening inside the forest. Then why there is a need for this act? Well, it's not that the forest department was stopping people for collection of fuel wood or grazing and all. They were given as privileges. Every state has given these as privileges to the community. The only thing what this act did, that it converted those privileges into rights. And there is a difference between privileges and right. Privilege is just a concession. Right is a legal term. If government tomorrow decides to take away the privileges, community cannot do anything. But government cannot take away the rights. If government doesn't give you the right, you can go to the court. That's different between privilege and right. So what it act does, that it converted all those privileges into rights of the people. So they have a legal remedy. So that this act is. Somebody says that after this act, people have started collecting MFP and after they have started collecting fuel wood because this act gives them this right. That's not true. I mean, collection of fuel wood has gone down after this Ujjwala Yojana because government is giving gas cylinders, so people are not going inside the forest to collect the fuel wood. So this fuel wood collection, I mean, before 2000, nearly 80% of the rural population was collecting fuel wood from the forest. At least I'm talking about the central Indian state where the forest is there. 80% of the rural population. So nobody can say that before this act, people are not collecting fuel wood and not collecting MFP. Suddenly, we have not discovered that the people have started collecting MFP after this act. That is not the situation. If state government or the forest department was not allowing people to collect fuel wood, people would have died of hunger because there was nothing to burn as a fuel in the chula. So these all things were happening. They were given by every state government as privileges, not as a right. That is the only difference which is acted, and it has been projected as if people have got fuel wood. I mean, they started collecting fuel wood only after this act. It's not true. It is only privileges which have been converted into rights. They have the right. They just say that we'll collect fuel wood in this area, and they're given a paper. They're, okay, this is your right. You can collect the fuel wood. Otherwise, similarly, there are few. This also talks about management. I know somebody raised the question that community rights, those are community resource rights. They've been given inside the national park and the sanctuary because this act says that even if, see, in national park, suppose there is no village inside the national park. Okay, the rights are all settled. But now this is a later act. It has come in 2006, so it will prevail over previous act. So this says that community resource right will be recognized inside national parks, and we have to recognize the right. So we'll recognize the right under this act. So people will recognize the right, means whatever right they want to recognize in terms of management, will recognize. And if they want to exercise those rights, let's see how it goes in the future. But this act says that community forest resource rights, community forest resource means there is a piece of forest over which the community may have management, regeneration, protection, conservation rights. Okay, so those rights, if community wants that we want to have those management, regeneration rights, so it may be recognized. There's no problem with that.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, one doubt.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, we had like this was done to undone the injustice that was done to the people. Now they have been given rights for that. So is the long-term idea of this act is to like resettle the given rights again? The rights, those rights were settled earlier, but they were not done in the right manner. That is why it has been passed. Like we discussed before, you mentioned that. No, is the long-term idea to resettle them again in the right manner?
Well, that's the idea. There is Not a question of resettling. I mean, it is mainly because of the people who are still having right inside the forest. Like people who have encroached the forest and they were doing agriculture. No, we under this act we are not settling rights of the people when the rights were there in 1860s or 1870s or 1880. It says that the people who are for tribal people, there are two types of community which have been identified in this. One is scheduled tribe and another one is other traditional forest dwellers, ST and OTFD. So it says that if a scheduled tribe has occupied a piece of land or having any rights on or before 13 December 2005, their rights will be recognized. Nobody is talking about 1860, 1870 or resettling those rights. It says that if you're having a right, we'll recognize it.
Right, sir. So we have to just give them the rights. We don't want to resettle them once again, but that's what just giving them the
You
rights
are
because it was
confusing.
informal earlier.
See, you are confusing. You're using the term resettle. What do you mean by resettling?
Sir, actually, like earlier we mentioned that they were resettled like by the British in the earlier time that was not done in the right manner. So there was injustice to the people. So then you mentioned that we brought this act to actually
Why are
get
you
correct.
using resettle word? It's only settling of rights.
Resettling, sir, in the sense that earlier settling was done in the not so right manner. Now we want to do it in the right manner. Like that was the idea behind using this word resettle.
Yes.
Maybe that's a mistake by me.
Yeah. Resettle. I mean, see, when you say resettlement, I mean, it conveys a different thing. It's that the the act uses the word recognizing the rights. Recognizes the right. It says that the historical injustice was done to the people. Government feels that the historical injustice was done while settling the rights of the people. Now it says that we are again reopening the issue and will settle the rights of the people if they're still having certain rights inside the forest. If you still having certain rights,
So
we'll settle. But there is no talk of history now. It says that if you're having rights up to 2005, we'll settle them or we'll
right,
allow
sir.
the rights.
Got it, sir. Right. Thank you.
Any more question in this?
Sir,
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I had one question.
Yes.
Like in under FRA, do the rights are also recognized under inside the tiger reserves as well?
Yes.
Sir, because
Yes.
in the okay, because I read somewhere that they are not recognized. Tiger habitats have been left out of scope of FRA.
See, the more you go into the details of it, I think I'll have to spend 5 more minutes on it. The thing is, in protected areas, and protected areas, when I'm talking about protected areas, it's national park, sanctuary, community reserve, and this conservation reserve. Okay, and tiger reserve is also under protected area. So, in protected areas, people can claim right under FRA. There is no doubt about it because FRA says that the rights will be recognized under the. You can recognize the right. Now there is a concept of critical wildlife habitat under FRA, Forest Right Act. Critical wildlife habitat, it says that if a piece of forest is a critical wildlife habitat, then rights of the people can be resettled in critical wildlife habitat. What it means that first you'll settle the rights of the people or you'll recognize the rights of the people in protected area. So I'm giving a paper. I say that okay, you have the rights of grazing, you have the rights of collection of MFP, you have the rights of management inside protected area, and I have given a paper of it. It is recognized on paper. Now, if my protected area is a critical wildlife habitat, then I can resettle whatever rights I have recognized. I'll say that okay, I'm ready to now settle the recognized rights and I'll settle the rights. This process may be called resettlement. So only in critical wildlife habitats, rights can be resettled. So first you are settling the rights by recognizing the rights of the people, and then you are resettling the rights by giving them some compensation if it is a critical wildlife habitat. So, and only protected area can become critical wildlife. So if there is a protected area like a national park and sanctuary, it is the duty of Ministry of Environment Forest. The responsibility has been given to MOEF to declare it as a critical wildlife habitat. And once it is declared as critical wildlife habitat, then resettle the right, compensate the people for their right, and make it involved. That's the idea. You got it?
Okay, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's a complicated thing. See, in this act came in 2000. I mean, the 2000 name is 2006. It came into force in 2008. Nearly 16 years have passed, and not a single critical wildlife habitat has been declared under this act, under FRA. It's a complicated process. See, there are many acts which are there in the statute book, but not all acts are implemented in the field. It's very difficult. Some acts are so complicated and disputed that execution of those in the field becomes very difficult. This is one of the acts where some of the parts of the act are so complicated that they give rise to more of the dispute than settling the dispute. And that's why they are not executed in the field. Okay, on the face of it, on the paper, they may look good, but on the field, they're very ugly. And that's why government also, I mean, just pushes it back a little bit. So this act, as such on paper, it's a beautiful act. It talks about involvement of people, but at the same time, I mean, it tries to encourage people to further encroach the forest land and try to claim that I am occupying this land since 2005. That is one of the thing. Okay. And second thing is, when we are in protected area, we on one hand we are trying to make them inviolate kind of area. On other hand, we are trying to we are recognizing the right of the people, and then it becomes a little difficult to execute this on the field. And that's why there is a long delay in it, because the understanding and working of this act on the field becomes very difficult. Got it?
Sir, one more question, sir.
Sir,
for example, is only agriculture allowed, or we can have like schemes like PM Gobardhan or Suryodaya Yojana where these kind of things can also be there?
See, this act only talks about having the agriculture rights. Okay. For individual, it's only the agriculture rights and activities related to agriculture. Now, if an activity comes in the category of activity related to agriculture, that's another thing, but it's recognition of agriculture rights, individual right. Then under this act, there are certain developmental activity which can be done on a piece of a forest land. The land diverted could be up to 1 hectare. So there are 13 activities like building of hospital, Anganwadi Bhavan, electric lines and all. So these are the 13, those are the 13 activities which are mentioned under section 3, subsection 2, that if the diverted land is less than 1 hectare, then Gram Sabha can go for those kind of activity on the forest land. So those kind of activity can separately be done when the diversion of land is less than 1 hectare.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question? Okay.
Yes, sir, I had a question.
Yeah,
if I may. Sir, I wanted to know if the critical wildlife habitat that you just mentioned, is that different from critical tiger habitat, or is it similar?
Yes. No, it's totally different. See, the critical tiger habitat is core area of a tiger reserve. Okay. That is in Wildlife Protection Act. So when we say critical tiger habitat, it's core area. Another word used is core area. So that is an area which is, as the definition goes, it says that on the scientific basis, you evaluate an area and you want to make it an inviolate kind of thing. You feel that the area should be inviolate, and that becomes that critical tiger habitat. Okay, that declare that area as a critical tiger habitat. The critical wildlife habitat is under FRA. And it says that again there will be a committee, and on the scientific basis you will evaluate whether the area is right to be declared as critical wildlife habitat. And critical wildlife habitat, as I already told, that only national park and sanctuary can be declared as critical wildlife habitat. No other forest can be declared as critical wildlife habitat. So there is a difference between critical tiger habitat, which is core area of a tiger reserve, and critical wildlife habitat, which is only under FRA, and it can be a part of a national park or a sanctuary and can be declared as critical wildlife. Got it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. There is also National Environment Policy of 2006, which talks about comprehensive policy on environmental preservation and control of pollution. Not again talk about this. Then there is a National Green Tribunal Act of 2010. Okay, it also talks about, I mean, we are having a National Green Tribunal after 2010. And if you read the preamble of it, it also talks about Stockholm Conference and Rio de Janeiro Conference of 92. Okay, and it also talks about the right of healthy environment has been considered as a part of right to life in Article 21 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court in many judgment has recognized this fact that the right of healthy environment is a fundamental right in Article 21 of Constitution. So National Green Tribunal is there in this country under this act. Even if it's a tribunal, it's having a status of high court. I mean, again, that's a debatable point, but it's equal to high court. Now, if you allow me to quote this, I mean, this is one of the quote which was quoted by Supreme Court in 1996 in one of the judgment. It says that if mere enactment of the laws relating to protection of environment was to ensure a clean and pollution-free environment, then India would perhaps be the least polluted country in the world. But this is not so. So we are having plenty of laws to govern the forest, wildlife, and environment in this country. But still, we are having lots of problems. And Supreme Court has come in between and try to save the situation for all of us. So what Supreme Court has done on environmental issue, I'll just in few minutes I'll discuss how Supreme Court got involved in all this and how Supreme Court have behaved in or in what manner Supreme Court has come forward and done the duty on environmental field. And after Supreme Court decision, there are few important cases. I'll be discussing those important cases. New principle on environment governance have evolved in last 3 decades, and these principles are not there in any of the statute book. In no law you will find all these principles. These have been talked in those conferences. In Rio conference also there was a talk of these principles, but in no law, no Indian law, these principles are there. They have come up only because Supreme Court in one or other ruling has emphasized and brought these principles forward, and now they have the strength of law. Okay, so these are the principle of strict liability, quality of pay principle, precautionary principle, doctrine of public trust, and principle of exemplary damage. I'll just show you in what cases these have been told by Supreme Court. So this is one of the, and it has evolved over a period of time. So first in 1987, if you look at it, the principle of strict liability, in one of the case of MC Mehta versus Union of India, and the case was regarding Sriram food and fertilizer. There's a oleum gas leak happened, and because of them, certain people suffered. Now, Supreme Court in those times in 87 had said this. It has used this principle of strict liability. It says that once the activity carried on is hazardous or inherently dangerous, the person carrying on such liability is liable to make good the loss caused to any other person. So if I am doing certain activity which is inherently hazardous, and if some other person suffers because of me, I need to make good to the loss caused by that other person. If the other person is at loss because of me, I'll have to make good of this. Okay, this is the principle of strict liability which Supreme Court emphasized and became law during those times. Now, next came this principle of polluter pays. Now, this again was evolved by Supreme Court in one of the important judgment, Bangalore Citizen Welfare Forum versus Union of India. Decision came on 1996, and Supreme Court held this affirm this polluter pays principle, and it means that the absolute liability for harm to the environment extend not only to compensate the victims of the pollution but also the cost of restoring the environmental degradation. So earlier in 87 strict liability judgment, Supreme Court has said that you'll have to make good only to the person who has occurred the loss. Though, but now it says that you'll have to not only give money to the person, but you'll also have to restore the land or restore the environment. So now it has gone one further step. It says that not only have to make good to the loss caused by the person, but also you'll have to restore the environment. This is one further step which polluter pay principle says. Then it has also evolved this use this precautionary principle, not evolved, because this precautionary principle was already in vogue during those times, and in the Rio conference it is also mentioned. The Supreme Court had used this precautionary principle and emphasized in one of the judgment, again in the same judgment, Bangalore Citizen Welfare Union. And this is a very important principle. I think you all should know that this precaution, what is precautionary principle? It says that it's the duty of state government and statutory authority that they must anticipate, prevent, and attack the cause of environmental degradation. So it's mainly the duty of state government. And when there are threats to the serious and irreversible damage, lack of scientific certainty should not be used as a reason for postponing measure. And third is the onus of proof is an actor or the developer to show that his action is environmentally benign. So if something wrong happens to the environment, it's the duty on the developer that he should prove that he was right. He has taken all the precaution. So the duty for the onus of proof falls on the developer. So this is the precautionary principle, very important principle which has evolved in those environmental regions. Then doctrine of public trust, it came in again one of the important judgment of Supreme Court in 96, MC Mehta versus Kamalnath. This is regarding a Span resort in Himachal Pradesh near Kullu. The resort was constructed in such a way that it changed the course of the Vyas River. So MC Mehta went to the court, and the court had said this. Court said that these river, air, water, these are not the property of government. Government is only trustee. The people are the real owner of these natural bounties. Government is only a trustee. And in this case, the Himachal Pradesh government has committed breach of public trust. So they say that these are kept by government in public trust as a trustee, and government in this case has done the breach of public trust by leasing ecological fragile land to Span Motel, and it imposed a heavy fine, principle of exemplary damage. In addition to not only restoring the place and making good to the people who had occurred loss, it also put this principle of exemplary damage that they will put extra damage to a person who has damaged them. So in this case, they imposed 10 lakh rupees fine in 2002 on Span Hotel. So these are few principles which are evolved over a period of time in India in judiciary, and even though they are not part of any law of this country, but they are, because Supreme Court has said it in different judgment, they are considered as part of the law. Now, one of the other important judgment is this Kodavarman judgment of 1996. Now, this is a very important judgment. It changed it's a watershed kind of judgment which changed the course of forest and wildlife in this country. It's a continuous mandamus. I mean, the judgment is, the case is still going on. So this case was filed in 1995 by a person called T.N. Godavarman. And the first judgment came in 12/12/96, and it's a major piece of judgment. I mean, still recently a judgment has come on probably 19th of February last month. The judgment has come. Supreme Court judgment has come over the amendment of FC Act, the Forest Conservation Act. On recent amendment, Supreme Court has again mentioned this judgment of 12/12/96, the first judgment of Supreme Court in this case. So this judgment is very important, the 12 December 96 judgment, which talks about forest shall be understood in terms of dictionary sense. So Supreme Court has also observed that the forest has not been defined in any other statute in this country. No law defines what is forest. So what is the meaning of forest we should take while we decide about the piece of land, whether it is forest or not. So it says that in this judgment, it had said that forest will be considered not only those pieces of land which are in the government record, so but also a piece of land which fits the dictionary meaning of forest will also be considered as forest. So after this definition, after this judgment, the definition of forest has become very wide. So it not only includes the forest which is on the government record, irrespective of ownership. If a government, whether it is owned by somebody else or by the government, if in government record a piece of land is recorded as forest, that will be considered as forest. And if a piece of land fits the dictionary meaning of forest, then also that will be considered as forest. And Forest Conservation Act will apply on it. And this definition was only for a limited, for a Forest Conservation Act. if you can connect, I mean, I told so many things. If you connect the Forest Conservation Act of 1980, it says that the de-reservation cannot be done without central government permission. It says that the diversion of forest land cannot be done without central government permission. But the question raised in this petition was, what is forest land? What if a piece of land is not a forest land on government record, but it has forest? Okay, some private people are owning that land. So some private person is having 100 hectare of piece of land which is having forest. Now it looks like forest. Whether the FCA will apply on that piece of land. So the Supreme Court said that the FCA will apply on that piece of land. Even if the owner or the community wants to fell, wants to de-reserve, wants to divert the piece of for that land, it is not allowed. The central government has to give permission. So it widens the scope of FCA, widens the scope of forest, definitely by including every piece of land which fits the dictionary meaning. Very important judgment. And after that, in this same, I mean, as I said, it's a continuous mandamus. The lots of every now and then comes to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court under this gives have given lots of judgment. One of the important judgment is of 14 Feb 2000. It says that the prohibition of removal of grasses, dead or decaying trees, driftwood form national park and sanctuary. So by this judgment, it says that nothing can go out of a national park and sanctuary. So whatever remains inside national park will remain inside national park. So if a tree has fallen inside a national park, it will remain inside the national park or a sanctuary. You cannot take out anything from national park and sanctuary. So anything cannot be removed. It's totally prohibited after this Supreme Court judgment. Similarly, this 13/11/2000 judgment, it says that the de-reservation of national park, sanctuary and forest cannot happen without the approval of Supreme Court. So the Forest Conservation Act says that the de-reservation cannot happen without the prior permission of central government. After this judgment, Supreme Court has said that after central government, kindly come to us also if you want to de-reserve a national park, sanctuary or a forest. So Supreme Court has inserted itself in de-reservation of national park, sanctuary and forest. Similarly, there are lots of things in this judgment only. I mean, this petition only, they evolve the concept of net present value based on users pay principle. Net present value means Supreme Court recognizes the forest. If you divert the forest, then diversion of forest doesn't mean that you are only felling this tree for present generation or for present. If you fell trees on a piece of land, it affects the future generation also. So in those terms, I mean, there is a calculation done in economic terms, the net present value of these piece of land when you remove all those trees was calculated. And Supreme Court, after the judgment of Supreme Court, we started calculating NPV. If we divert a piece of land, forest land, for non-forestry purpose, so whatever loss will happen in future, we calculate, and there is a rate per rate, rupees, this much of rupees per hectare, which needs to be deposited NPV. Then only the piece of land will be diverted for non-forestry purposes. So those kind of concepts have evolved by Supreme Court. Similarly, a fund now, the act has come in the form of CAMPA. What it means when we say CAMPA, what it means that whatever money you get from collection of these NPV, you cannot use this money for any other purpose than for forest and wildlife. So it says that if you whatever money you get from NPV, deposit in some head in and use it for conservation of forest and wildlife. So this compensatory afforestation fund management planning authority was made, and now it has been converted into act. I think the CAMPA Act of 2016. So now it is under the act. So the whatever money we get from diversion of forest, from destruction of forest, that money will be used in conserving the forest and wildlife for some other area. This money cannot be used for any other purpose. So our judiciary in past years was a public educator, policymaker, supreme administrator, taxpayer, and finances. Every role it has played in the field of environment. Right to wholesome environment has been included in right to life. Okay, so this is in different judgments. I have quoted that wholesome environment is a fundamental right now. And okay, can there's the last slide. And then in Supreme Court has always followed this dictum that when we are interpreting something in the field of environment, it has to be a purposive interpretation which will save the environment. It says that as an effective tool for protecting and preserving environment, these provisions must receive a purposive interpretation. For it is only when the interpretation of law keeps pace with the object of legislation that the grave evils which pose a danger to our natural environment can be suppressed. The consequence of climate change are bearing down on every day of our existence. Statutory interpretation must remain eternally vigilant to the daily assault of the environment. The Supreme Court had been very sensitive on the issue of environment. Most of the time, it has favored in the favor of environment, forest, and wildlife. And it has said in this judgment that it has to be a purposive interpretation which favors environment. So this is my basic presentation. I think I've spent nearly more than 1.5 hours. So now you can pose questions to me, and I'll welcome all the questions.
Sir, recently there was a Supreme Court ruling. I cannot say, but yes, Supreme Court is discussing on a case of Jim Corbett, where it has reprimanded the state government for diversion of core areas of tiger habitat for some purposes like ecotourism and resorts. So, sir, can you elaborate a bit on that, and like, how are they even allowed? Like, how could state government do in spite of having a law?
See, I'll not go into the specific cases. Some of these are sensitive issues. I may not be having all the information regarding this. I can only discuss about the policies and issues related to it. See, in national park or any other protected area, the commercial, any construction which is of commercial nature cannot happen. Even forest department cannot have commercial lodges inside national park or sanctuary. Okay. We can only have our patrolling nakas and all. Okay, for staff we can construct few quarters. For rest houses we can construct. But if we want to construct something which is of commercial nature, that is not allowed. Any construction inside national park and all is permission is given by Chief Wildlife Warden, because Chief Wildlife Warden is the authority which controls under the Act the national park and sanctuary. So I don't know exactly what has happened there, but it seems that something of commercial nature was being constructed there, and because of that, the action was taken.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, any other question?
Sir, good
Sir,
evening, sir.
Yeah.
please go on.
Sir, I'm also from IIT Bombay. I have been passed out in 2021 batch.
Okay.
I'm from computer science department, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, with respect to forestry and Sanjay Gandhi National Park proximity, what are the questions that can be asked in interview or related? Yeah.
If you see, IIT Bombay campus is also very green. So
Yes, sir.
what I'll suggest that get little information about the trees and the animals and the birds and all those things, a little bit about Sanjay National Park also. The information will help you. Otherwise, the basic concept should be very clear. See, the recent amendments and all, integrity of law, those are typical things. If you may not, if you do not know them, and if you accept that I don't know much about those, I mean, that's a good thing. But if you do not know about the basics of forestry and wildlife, then it's a problematic thing. Second thing, I'll suggest that whatever law we have, at times we have a tendency to criticize certain law which we feel that or we have read that it's not good, that it's not I mean it's in one way or other. But if the government has passed the legislation, and if you're going for a government job, be positive about that legislation. You can have your own opinion about it, but you can express your opinion, you can express in terms of apprehension. Okay, but to say that this is wrong or it should not have been done, that's a very aggressive stance taken on these issues. If you're a private person not looking for government job, you can have any opinion, but if you're looking for a government job, criticizing government in so many words is not good. Okay, so just keep that in mind also. Especially in terms of FRA, I feel that many people become very aggressive. It will destroy our forest, it will destroy our wildlife. It's not the case. The FRA is now here for nearly 20 years, not 20, 16, 17 years. It has not destroyed the forest of this country. You see, the tiger numbers are increasing, leopard number are increasing. We have brought cheetah, managing cheetah in Kono. So it's not that our forest cover is increasing. So it's not that some legislation has destroyed the forest of this country. So if there are some demerits of the act, then there are certain merits of the act also. So try to focus on merits of the act. If it has already been passed and being implemented. Okay, there may be apprehensions. Every act is having apprehension. There are certain aspects of governance which you'll always find that there are certain things can be improved. But criticizing government on those aspects will not be right. That is my opinion.
Sir,
Yeah.
so one question. Sir, recently someone asked me that regarding the cheetah relocation project. So
Yeah.
some critics have alleged that it was bound to be a failure in any case
Yeah.
because of the environmental condition and so, and we are seeing that also. Like a lot of cheetahs are dying. So was it even right at the first step to like initiate this project in case this type of question is asked? So should we defend the government first?
Yeah. Actually, when see, this is one of the important project which as a country we have taken in terms of conservation. First intercontinental translocation conservation project. It has never been done anywhere in the world before. Okay, first time it's being done intercontinental. A big mammal is being translocated from one place to another, and it has been started by a prime minister of this country. So you just can't take this for a fact that nothing was thought before bringing cheetah into India. If somebody says that, I mean, this is happening, that is happening, do you have the fact that what was expected out of this project?
Yes, sir. Even it was said that they are expecting around 50% will die, and only after that will remain.
And what is the
And
what is the number of cheetah at this point in time in this country?
less, only with the one which we have brought.
We brought 20 cheetahs, out of which 7 have died. Okay, now nearly 19 months have passed. Out of 27 have died. We are having 13 adult cheetah and we are having 13 cubs. In all, we are having 26 cheetahs. Now, we should look at the facts also. Now, and also look that what are the goals we have kept in front of us. If you say that we have thought that in first year we'll lose 50% cheetah, we are more than 50% cheetah at this point in time. Whether this is a failure or success, you can evaluate. Second thing is cheetah breeding in India. When nobody expected that the breeding will happen so fast. Nobody expected. Even the country of export, they never expected the breeding will happen so fast. So it's a long-term project. If you look, see, success and failure of cheetah project is not for 1 year or 2 years. It's a long-term project. When cheetah, see, South Africa lost its cheetah in 50s. It started bringing cheetah from Namibia in 70s, and it took 25 years in South Africa. They brought cheetah from Namibia. It took 25 years for cheetah to establish in South Africa, and they were neighboring, more or less neighboring countries. And in the process, they lost 300 cheetahs, 279 to be precise. Whatever cheetah they brought from Namibia, they lost 279 of those cheetahs. We only lost 7. We only brought 20, and it's only 19 months. Okay, so if we want to take a decision on this, we'll have to go through what were the objectives set for the project, and as per those objectives, where we are.
Right,
so they are short-term goal, they are long-term goals. Short-term goal, as I said, at least save more than 50% of cheetah in first year. Now breeding is successful. The next step is that the cubs should survive, and normally the cheetah cubs will leave their mother when they are of 16 to 18 months of age. So when they leave their mother, and if they are able to hunt independently in the Kuno forest, that's the next step of success of this project, that an Indian born cheetah is able to survive in the wild independently. And then the final success will be when Indian born cheetah will give birth to cub. Then they will, when they breed, that will be the final ultimate. And the final is the goal of the project is to establish cheetah meta population in India. Final these are the steps which have been set before the project, and nothing at this point in time suggests that the goals are not met.
Right, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Any other question? Yeah.
Sir, my question was with respect to Forest Rights Act.
Yeah.
If a situation arises like a community has been displaced earlier from the forest area, and now after the enactment of the act, they come and claim the right over the land. So that would be entertained or not?
See, once the condition in Forest Right Act is that by 13 December 2005, that is the cutoff line, and you should be occupying the land on or before 13 December 2005, and you should be having the possession on 1st January 2008. So if you are possessing that land, if you are over that piece of land, then you can claim right, and your right can be recognized. But if you are staying somewhere outside the forest and you are claiming some land over which the land is not under your possession, then you cannot claim the right. Your right will not be recognized in that case. You should be They are on that piece of land. Until you are there on that piece of land, your possession is not there on 1st January of 2008, you cannot claim.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes. My question was regarding the Godavarman judgment. So you
Yeah.
said that November 2000 order. No, sorry, sir. February 2000 order in the judgment, the Supreme Court said that prohibition of removal of grasses, dead and decaying trees, even from the National Park and Wildlife Sanctuary.
Yeah.
So, sir, doesn't it contradict with the FRA 2006?
See, there are lots of contradiction with the FRA. There's Supreme Court judgment and they have FRA. And that's why I say that it's at times become difficult to execute the act on the field. Okay. So on one side, you're having Supreme Court judgment which says that nothing can go out of the national park. And on the other hand, if FRA, they say that we are having community forest resource right and we want to do this and we want to have collection of MFP and all. It's a tricky situation. It's a tricky situation to handle on the field. Strictly, you can, under the Act 2006 Act, because it's a later act, the judgment was in 2000. This act is a later act, came in 2006. Strictly legally speaking, you can bypass, you can surpass that Supreme Court Act and you can collect anything in the national park if it has been recognized as right and take out of the national park. Okay, but the thing is, I mean, it's difficult to take Supreme Court head on. That's the thing. You can recognize right, but again, the matter may go to the Supreme Court, and uh, most of the time, people who are trying to get the rights, they don't want to take on Supreme Court head on because Supreme Court is also very sensitive with regard to protected areas, national parks, sanctuary, wildlife, and all. So the question of provisions of FRA, I mean, provisions of FRA may be questioned in the Supreme Court, whether how they are coming in conflict with Supreme Court judgment and all. Very tricky questions to answer, but strictly legally speaking, that can be done. The rights can be recognized and they can collect and take out of the national park and sanctuary.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, on two complex issues, sir, I would like to know your opinion, sir. One is human-wildlife conflict we are seeing every day in news, and secondly, sir, invasive alien species. Like, sir, what exactly can Forest Department do to win over these?
Yeah. See, human wildlife conflict, again, there are many aspects of it. One is the human loss and another one is property loss. Okay, so they are conflict in terms of where life of a person is lost, and these are the conflicts which are there with mostly with the elephants, then with tiger and
Very
leopard. Okay, so these three animals most of the time are in conflict with human, where the human life is lost. Elephant is also with the property, but main means human life is lost with the elephant. And on the second end, when the property, we talk about loss of property, it's about elephant, and then you have wild boar, you have nilgai, okay, you have some other, I mean, herbivore maybe there depending upon what area you are working in, you're talking in. So, human life lost and property loss, there are two kinds of conflict we are having. Now, with in case of human life loss, Wildlife Protection Act says, I mean, legally it says that an animal can be, permission can be given to kill any animal, any wild animal. Okay, it's a different schedule. I mean, it talks about schedule and all. So any wild animal can be permitted to be captured or killed by Chief Wildlife Warden. Okay, if uh, Chief Wildlife Warden agrees or accepts the position that that has become threat to human life. Okay, so first it should be captured, And if you're not successful in capturing, it can be killed also. That CWLW can give permission. In case of property loss, okay, there is certain category of wildlife which cannot be killed. So it says that the schedule 1 animal cannot be killed in case of property loss. Only rest of the schedule animal, now only 2 schedules are there. So schedule 2 animal can be permitted to be killed by chief wildlife warden if there is a property loss. So an elephant cannot be given permission for killing just because it is causing property loss. So that's the legal position. Now certain states have amended the Wildlife Protection Act, and they have given this power to kill wild boar, that is wild pig, and nilgai to I mean different lower rank officer like SDM has been given power in Madhya Pradesh to kill a nilgai, to give permission to kill a nilgai or a wild boar if they feel that they are destroying the crops and all. So in certain states, different animals have been we earlier used to call it declared as a vermin, and then those could have been killed. So different states, forest department of the different states are trying to treat it in their own manner, with how they can best handle it. But it's a challenge for forest department also. It's not easy, especially with the elephants. I don't have experience to deal elephants because Madhya Pradesh we don't have elephants, wild elephants. Only in certain one of the national park there are wild elephants. But otherwise, where the wild elephants are present, it's a huge issue, and forest department is dealing day in day out with elephants coming in habitation and destroying crops and all, and leading to human loss of life. So it's a huge challenge, and we have devised way. I mean, we're working on it. In case of tiger, see, we are having problem with tiger also. In Madhya Pradesh is dealing with tiger. I was also there in Panna Tiger Reserve for 2 years. Tiger is again an issue. Now the number of tigers are increasing. Every tiger reserve is having every census. The number will increase, and the tigers are coming out of the boundaries of national park. I mean, it's open boundary. We don't have the fenced reserve kind of thing. So tigers, when the population will increase, surely it will spread. So it is spread, it come close to human habitation, and then the accident happen. Tiger will not run after a human and kill it. Just is because just the accident happens. There is a chance encounter which happens, and the tiger kills a human being. But the number of those chance encounters are increasing because the tiger population is increasing and human population is also increasing. It is also moving close to the forest as far as it can go. So again, there are lots of things which can be done. First is, I mean, there are technical, scientific ways to manage a tiger reserve in that sense. So we call it tiger a core buffer strategy. We are dealing tiger reserve in terms of core buffer strategy. So core is the main area which is considered to be inviolate, where the tiger population will there breed. And buffer are we used to consider it as a spread. It's an area where the tiger will spread once it goes out of the core area. It will spread in buffer area. And buffer area was not supposed to be meant that good as the core area. So buffer area, it's a multi-use area. People will also use, cattle will also use. So it will be a degraded kind of area where the wild population, wild herbivore population will be less. So tiger will not find sufficient to eat in those buffer area. Number of tiger will be limited in those buffer area. So tiger, I mean, main a population will be in core area. Buffer will have few tigers. Now, what has happened to the buffer has also improved because of protection given by forest department. We have done lots of improvement work. We focus on improving the degraded forest. So we have improved the buffer, and now the herbivore population in those areas have increased, and now water availability has improved. So tiger is breeding in buffer areas also. The population is increasing now. The tiger is going out of the buffer in other forest area and close to the habitation and revenue area now. So that's I mean, technical aspect, the scientific aspect is how do we manage the core buffer strategy. That is one aspect of it. do. Second is that we can reduce the dependency of people on forest. See, most of the conflicts happen when people go inside the forest for collection of fuel wood, MFP, or for other things. So if we can reduce the dependency of the people on forest, then people will not go inside the forest and chance encounter will reduce. So like distribution of gas, LPG gas, that is one of the thing when fuel wood collect for fuel wood collection, people will not go inside the forest. So the chance encounter will reduce. Okay, similarly, I mean for other things also, grazing can also be stopped inside. I mean, if we can stall feed the cattle, then there is no need for, and so they should be encouraged to have less dependency on forest, and they should be given alternate employment, alternate benefit. See, tiger reserve are attracting lots of tourists and lots of economy is generated. We should make sure that whatever economy is generated, the local people get benefit out of it. So if we are stopping people from going inside the forest to reduce the chance encounter, they should get the economic benefit out of it, and they should get something out of it. So the benefit which the tourism is generating, they should be given a portion of it. Now, these are the few issues I think we should be dealing, and probably in future we should be dealing in that way. We are thinking in those terms, but how they'll come in future, we'll have to see. These are the ideas which should be done.
So second was of invasive species. Sorry.
Invasive species. See, invasive species, the main invasive species I think in central India is Parthenium and Lantana, okay, which are affecting the forest. In western part of the country, in Rajasthan, it is Prosopis juliflora, which is affecting the forest. Prosopis juliflora is tree, while the Lantana is a shrub, and Parthenium is also a shrub or herb. So now these are spread in Lantana, especially is spread in many forest area and very vast land, and forest department spend lots of money in removing Lantana. So removal is the only way. Otherwise, we have thought of alternate use of Lantana, like making furniture, using them as fuel wood. Different kind of things have been tried, but ultimately, I mean, the removal of lantana from forest area and keep on removing for next 2-3 years so that it doesn't come again. That is the best solution. Whether we can use it economically, that's another thing. Even if it is not used economically, still we'll have to remove it because it affects the local biodiversity. In national park and all, it becomes difficult because there are animals, and these kind of works are very difficult to do. If a tiger area is there, leopards are there, it's very difficult for labor to come and remove the lantana. Becomes very difficult. So there are challenges in national park and all. And at times, I mean, so over a period of time, the animals have also adopted lantana as shelter. Some birds also use seeds and all. In summer times, in dry deciduous areas and dry areas, it has green leaves, so soft green leaves can be eaten by some animals. It's been seen that some herbivores eat those leaves also in the stress period. So these the Parthenium need to be removed if it is there in some in the area, but it needs to be removed. It's quite allergic also to the land as well as to the animals also at times. So Parthenium, which is also known as gazer grass, need to be removed. So government has to spend money. Forest department has to spend money to remove this invasive alien species. In central India, these are the two most important this thing. I said in Rajasthan you have Prosopis juliflora as tree. So again that Rajasthan also tries to do removal of Prosopis juliflora in some of the areas.
Thank you, sir.
Water hyacinth is again one of them. When water bodies, water hyacinth is again a big problem. Very big problem.
Sir, namaste. Sir, I want to ask question about joint forest management, sir. Sir, is it successful? And if not, how it can be made successful in India?
See, joint forest management in India started in 1990. As said in 1988, policy talks about involving people in management for forest. In 1990, government came out with the central government came out with the resolution of JFM. And as per JFM, we form committees in villages, forest committees in villages which are within the 5 kilometer radius of the forest. That's the idea of JFM. And committees, they are involved in, say, the management of forest. Now, it's not easy for any common person to get involved in the management of forest. First of all, forest work, most of the forest work is technical work. Okay, so people are trained to do forestry work or wildlife work. Now we can involve people up to a certain extent in management. That is one aspect of it. Second is, see, people are also busy. I mean, they just for free, they cannot get involved in the forest management. We can't say that, okay, chalo, we'll do protection work today, we'll do a patrolling for the whole day and keep on doing for a week. I mean, people also got work to do. They'll go and do work, but they're very difficult to say that it's successful or unsuccessful. In parts, there's certain areas where it is successful, and I've seen it is successful in Madhya Pradesh, at least in those areas where we are able to pass on benefits in monetary terms. In Madhya Pradesh, the government has decided that 20% of the felling revenue will be shared with these committees. Okay, so we do lots of felling, nearly 1200 crores of timber revenue per year we generate by felling timber in Madhya Pradesh. So out of 1200 crores, just say 20% is shared with these committees where their felling have taken place, the scientific felling have taken place. So those committees are active because they're getting some money out of it. So you can, if you're giving, government is giving money, so surely they can be involved in different protection work. They can be given more responsibility, like they can be asked not to burn fire close to the forest, and if fire is happening and fire happens inside the forest, kindly come and douse the fire. Those kind of things can be done when you're giving some benefits. Where benefits are not given in these terms, it's really difficult to engage people for a longer term. You can involve people for a few months. Okay, but for a longer term, you need to think on ways where they can get economic benefit out of it. Like in national park, sanctuary, tiger reserves, see, wherever tourists are coming and economy is being generated, people will protect forest because tourists are coming because of tiger is. So tiger is not there, nobody will come. So everybody will protect tiger because economy is generated in those areas. Like in Kuno, if cheetah had come, people are having faith that the tourism will come in this area. Otherwise, no tourists were coming in these areas. So now tourists have increased also. Whatever tourists we used to get, I mean, last 5 years we have got in single this year. Now, so the economic activities have taken place. There are lots of people we have recruited for monitoring of cheetah, and also these direct benefit have gone to the people, and they feel that now we can protect forest, we can protect wildlife, we can protect cheetah, and it will generate economic benefit to us. And this model is very successful. And so this JFM movement, joint forest movement, will only succeed if people will find it economically beneficial to get involved in the management of forest. Otherwise, in longer run, we cannot involve these committees actively without without providing them any benefit. We can involve them for a shorter period just by, saying that this is a natural resource, national resource, and we should protect it. But in longer term, we need to provide them benefit also. Otherwise, they lose interest in this. So in many pockets, this is very successful. Where economic benefits are coming, it is very successful. Where pride is coming, it is very successful. So if we can involve people with the pride, some kind of pride, like the cheetah is coming and they feel that the cheetah, okay, it's only one in country place where the cheetah is there, and they'll feel proud about it. So they try to get involved and they protect. So if we can do these kind of things, then we can improve the JFM. Otherwise, it cannot say it's a failure or it's a highly successful venture, but it has, I mean, some part it has failed, but in some part it's very successful also.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So, as you mentioned, in case of cheetah reintroduction, our long-term goal is establishing a meta population of cheetah. So, what exactly is meta population? Like, how we define it?
Okay. See, when an animal is there, especially in terms of carnivore, we say that for a species to survive, there has to be a viable population, okay, which needs to be there for a species to survive. In case of tiger, we say that the viable population of tiger in an area is a population which is having 20 breeding tigers, and the area should be minimum 800 square kilometer. Okay, that's a definition given by NTC. For a viable tiger population in an area, the area should be 800 square kilometer. There should be 20 breeding tigers. Now, then that area becomes the self-sufficient. I mean, tiger population will survive forever in that area until unless there is some external factor which will affect the tiger population, like poaching and all. If it happens, then uh, population may dwindle. But otherwise, if you're having 800 square kilometer and 20 breeding tigers, the population will survive forever. Now, if you don't have 800 square kilometer of area, or you don't have that 20 breeding tigers, now there is a smaller population. Okay, and you are having smaller places, like you're having 200 300 square kilometer area in different pockets, and you're having 5 tigers 10 tigers in those areas. Now these smaller population, if we combine all this population, becomes a viable population in the whole area. Like suppose in whole Madhya Pradesh, you are having 10 these small areas which are having 5 10 tigers. Overall, this population is a viable population in Madhya Pradesh. Now, these smaller population are known as meta population.
Okay.
So when we say that the goal is to establish cheetah meta population, that means we don't have, the Kuno National Park is not big enough to have a viable cheetah population. We'll establish a successful meta population in Kuno National Park, and then probably we'll find other places, like we're looking for other places which will have these smaller meta population also. Overall, we'll have in India a viable cheetah population. Okay, because this meta population will not vanish at the same time at all places. A meta population may vanish at one place at one point in time. We'll again establish population where it has been vanished. So if you're having 10 meta population, probably in 2 places because of some reason the cheetah vanished. But we can reintroduce cheetah in those 2 places again. Overall, we have in these 10 places a viable cheetah population which will be forever. So in India, we will establish this cheetah meta population in different places, and we have identified 10 spots in India in 7 landscape for these cheetah meta population to establish. So overall, in these 10 spots, we'll have viable cheetah population in India. Okay, so India will have a viable cheetah population in these 10 places with small meta population.
Okay, sir. Got it, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, what was the need of cheetah reintroduction? How do we explain that?
Yeah.
Especially
See,
because
cheetah. No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. It's a good question. See, cheetah in India, it is considered historically. Cheetah was part of Indian culture. If you look at the historical record, there is a cave which is having cheetah depicted in Madhya Pradesh, Mandsaur district, which is considered to be more than 20,000 year old. Okay. So cheetah is considered to be part of Indian culture, and this is the only mammal, big mammal, which we have lost in recent past. even though we are having 16% of human population and 16% of cattle population of the world, we have not lost any big mammal in at least in last 150 years. It is the only mammal we lost. And because we always felt that the cheetah was a cultural entity of the Indian culture, we always felt pain about losing cheetah. And as soon as in 1947, it is said that the last 3 cheetahs were shot in Korea district in Chhattisgarh. You all must have seen the picture of a Raja standing over 3 cheetahs lying on the ground. And in 1952, we declared cheetah as extinct in this country. And we all felt pain that we lost cheetah. And since 52, in the first meeting of Indian Board of Wildlife happened in 1952, the meeting discussed the cheetah issue and said that we should reintroduce cheetah in this country. So it's not that in 2022 we brought cheetah. In 1952 we decided to bring cheetah back because it was part of our culture. अभी भी कोई भी जो है वो, if you go to the village side and all, I mean, even if your friend runs very fast, you say that it runs like cheetah. Everybody says that. So it's part of our culture and we lost it. That means we are saying that it runs like cheetah and we don't have cheetah. While the history says that we had cheetah. So it's the process of bringing our culture back. And that's why we have brought cheetah. The effort started in 1952. Okay, earlier we were planning to bring Asiatic cheetah from Iran, but it could not materialize. In 70s, things were happening, but because of cultural revolution of Iran, it could not materialize. Again, this process started of bringing African cheetah in 2009, and when a meeting happened in Gajner, Rajasthan, the international IUCN and Indian counterpart meeting happened in Gajner, Rajasthan, where it had decided that we'll bring cheetah back. Then the spots were identified. I said the 10 spots were identified. Kuno is one of them. And then after that, we brought cheetah in India in 2022. It got delayed because in 2013, Supreme Court had put a ban on bringing cheetah in Kuno National Park because Kuno was being readied for lions. So there's some issue in 2020. Supreme Court lifted the ban of bringing cheetah in India, in Kuno. So immediately the government of India went and signed the agreement. In 2022, we brought cheetah.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So, sir, in Godavarman judgment, Supreme Court said that forest is dictionary meaning. What
Yes.
exactly is dictionary meaning, sir?
Oxford Dictionary. Supreme Court has said that they use Oxford Dictionary.
Okay, so any ecosystem dominated by trees.
No, nothing. Oxford says that a piece of land having shrub, bush over it, trees, shrub, wood over it is a forest. You can go and see the Oxford Dictionary. Still, and Supreme Court in recent judgment of 19 February has emphasized the fact that the forest should is to be understood in terms of dictionary meaning.
Because answer, what could be the rationale behind the establishment of zoos in forest areas under new amended act? Or how can we
Supreme Court not put as ban on it. Supreme Court has said that if you want to put a safari or a zoo, safari, especially for safari, I'm just forgetting whether zoo is also included. It says that if you want to have a safari inside forest, then kindly take our permission. Okay, so that is 19 Feb judgment. So what's wrong in this? I mean, if you want to set up zoo inside the forest, not in protected areas, in other forest areas, what's wrong in having a zoo inside forest?
Will it not harm the wildlife of that area if inside the forest?
Why should harm? There are villages inside forest. I mean, having a zoo inside the forest, how it will harm? See, there is always, as I said, there is always two sides of the story. On one side, if you look at the strict, I mean, conservationist term, that you are destroying the forest and setting up a zoo. Okay, you'll be doing construction, lots of construction. You will be putting artificial animal there. People will be coming, and area will get disturbed. That is one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that uh, at time it's become difficult to get land for these kind of venture, and these kind of things are uh, quite economically profitable in terms of they develop the area. And if in some rural area, in some these kind of areas, backward areas, you can set up a zoo which can attract people and economy can be generated, then it has its own advantage in terms of conservation. And then as a government, as an administrator, you'll have to find a balance somewhere. You just can't be sitting on one side and doing everything. You'll have to find a balance that how these things generating economic benefit out of forest and wildlife, and where it doesn't affect the real conservation of it, where the balance lies. Like the fight of development versus conservation, it goes on. So we'll have to find a balance. See, government has both the things on their hand. They have to develop the country, at the same time they have to conserve the natural resources of this country. They cannot destruct the natural resources of this country also. But you can't sit on one side. You can't say that we will develop at whatever cost or you will conserve at whatever cost. It cannot be done. Finally, the things should run also. So we'll have to find a balance. And in finding those balance, I mean, that's like where our roles also comes into play, that we'll try to help government. Government also bring those kind of legislation and rules which will help in taking a balanced view. Okay, so government is in the process of having a balanced view of all the things, where the economy, right amount of economy should be generated without harming, real harm to any conservation aspects. And taking all these into consideration, government takes decisions. I mean, you can't blame government that government is to destroy the country. You can't take that premise and want to have a government job.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. My question is regarding mechanical engineering. So, what can be said its application in the forestry?
No, I forgot my mechanical engineering.
Okay.
Difficult question.
Okay.
Normally we say, I mean, in our time also we used to learn while we were going for interviews, what is the use, you are engineer, why are you coming to forest service? So there is a standard answers also. You must have also read or also mugged up those answers. Why do you want to join this service when you are an engineer? It's a wastage of resource here from IIT and all. You want to come to forest service. So have those standard answers. Those will suffice, and I think.
Okay, sir.
Otherwise, mechanical engineer will not help you in any way in forest service. If the standard answer goes, I think in way that being an engineer, you have a scientific understanding or kind of thing, na? So if that helps, probably it'll help everywhere, whether in forest service or any other job. It's not specifically that it'll help you in forest service. So whether a mechanical engineer or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, my question is that government is ongoing this Ken-Betwa River interlinking project. So what are the environmental challenges out of this project, and also the challenges of the tribal population which are being rehabilitated?
See, I'll tell you, because I was in Panna Tiger Reserve, so I know a few facts about the project. See, the Panna Tiger Reserve is 576 square kilometer of core area. Okay, and nearly 1100 around 1100 is the buffer area, or 676 square kilometer is the core area, and rest of the 11,000 square kilometers is the buffer area. Now the Ken-Betwa River, the idea is to build a dam inside core area right? And it will submerge nearly 45 square kilometer of core area. Construction of dam and the submergence area is around 45 square kilometer inside core area. Then there will be pipeline and there will be some area which will be submerged in buffer. So total submergence is around, and the use of forest land for this whole project is around 60 square kilometer area. Okay, so out of 60, 45 is in the core. So I think around core area of 600 square kilometer, 45 square kilometer of core area will be affected. Now, how it will affect the future will only tell us. There are lots of reports, lots of studies have been done, and after study, all the it doesn't. I mean, it's not the case that one find a government decides and it executes the thing. There are lots of rules and regulation, lots of clearances. The Supreme Court clearance also comes for all this kind of things. So if in core area, land is to be diverted for non-forestry purposes, the state government, central government, National Board of Wildlife, and Supreme Court, they should all allow it to happen. If it is happening, that means everybody has allowed it. Now, whether in future there is a WIA study also, and that study has been submitted to Supreme Court and all, and after that the decision has been taken. So now to say that it will adversely affect, now if these many institutions and these many committees and all, they have given a report for construction of a dam, let's have it. I mean, we are not wiser than all these institutions and committees. Now, whether it will destroy the national park and whether it will adversely affect the national park, let's see after 5 years, 10 years how it happens. Okay, there are many national parks where the big water bodies are inside the national park in the core. Satpura is one of them, Pech is another. There are many national parks where big water bodies are there. So that's one aspect. Surely Tiger are using at this point in time those 45 square kilometer of core area, Tigers are using. Okay, but it doesn't mean that when area is submerged, the tiger will also submerge. They'll shift. They'll also feel pain from shifting those areas, like the people feel pain when they get shifted from one area. They'll also feel pain. There will be some effect on wildlife, that's for sure. Okay, but again, as I said, it's a balance between right amount of development and right amount of conservation. And I cannot be the lonely person who can make a call on this. There are lots of, as I said, lots of institutions, lots of committees which take these kind of decisions. No individual takes these kind of decisions. People who will be shifted, submergence, there are I think 9 or 10 villages, which will be, there's no villages inside the core. No, there's 3 villages inside the core and probably 6 or 7 villages outside the core area, which will be submerged. And they'll be shifted out. There's a good, nowadays shifting from national park and all, it's a good package which government offers. And there is a voluntary relocation. Most of the national park and tiger reserve and sanctuary, people want to go out because it's a very attractive package and there are very least amount of facility inside sanctuary and national park. See, nothing is allowed. You won't have electricity, you don't have good roads, you don't have school, you don't have teacher, you don't have medical facility. So how will you survive in those conditions? The government is giving good packages, government is giving land outside, government is giving good money package. People take those and there's a voluntary relocation which happens in these areas. So as such, resettlement is not a big issue in these areas. It's always painful to shift from one area to another area, but government is trying its best to reduce that pain. Okay, by offering good packages.
Thank you, sir. So one more follow-up. So declaring Ranipur Tiger Reserve as a tiger reserve, would this help in this movement of tigers?
See, Ranipur comes in the corridor. There is a movement of tiger from Panna to Ranipur side. Okay, so it wants to protect. It's a tiger landscape actually. Now this Ken Betwa river, there was a condition to manage tiger on landscape basis. So there is a Greater Panna landscape plan which has been prepared by WIA. So it talks about nearly 50,000 square kilometer involving 11 districts. So it says that the tiger moves in these many areas, and these areas need to be managed on landscape basis. Landscape means that there is a mosaic of revenue, agriculture, land plus the forest, and it will be managed by different government authorities in such a way that the tiger will not have any problem in this area. Okay, so Ranipur, even though it is nearly, I think, 150 kilometers, 100 kilometers away from Panna as crow flies, but the tiger uses that portion. So if you declare Ranipur as tiger reserve, so from Panna to Ranipur, means the area will be in future will get better connected, better protected. Ranipur
Thank you, sir.
individually, Ranipur Tiger Reserve individually will not be, it's a small area, individually probably it will not a very big population, but it is very well connected, and Panna Tiger are regularly going to those areas.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in case of any poaching activity in a forest area, what is the course of action that a DFO can take?
See, under the Act, it can, it's duty to capture the poachers and put them behind the bars, get them maximum punishment from the court. Maximum punishment is up to 7 years of imprisonment. That's the duty of DFO.
So, sir, the DFO goes like himself to catch the forest, or he gives a direction to the forest rangers?
See, it's a teamwork, and different rank officers are given different responsibility and powers under the Act. Okay, so a forest guard is there. His role and duties are defined. Range officers' roles and duties are defined. DFO's roles and duties are defined. Okay, so different rank officer will play their own part. DFO surely will not be running after the culprit. It's the lower staff whose jurisdiction is little smaller than DFO's jurisdiction. They'll be the first one to come into the picture. DFO will, as a team leader, will be guiding the team, and whatever responsibility has been given to the DFO under the Act, he'll be exercising those powers and responsibility.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, recently Kerala government declared human wildlife conflict as a state disaster. So,
Yes.
how you look at it? Is it encroaching the powers of forest department?
Now, can you repeat the question?
Sir, is it encroaching the power of forest department by declaring as a state disaster?
What, forest fire?
No, human wildlife conflict.
Acha, human wildlife conflict. Yeah, I got this. See, I not thought much about it. Maybe I'll think over it and then answer. I'm not gone into the issue. I read it in the news, but I've not gone into the issue to form an opinion over the issue.
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir. Sir, you have been in the service for a very long time now. I just want to know, like, for you, what are the best things about the Indian Forest Service?
Okay. These are the kind of question are very tricky. See, when I joined the service, I mean, I was not much aware about forest service. I'm from Dehradun, so I was little sensitive about nature and all. Because Dehradun being its location in such location, it makes you a little sensitive about nature. And most of the, it's called Makkah for forest officers, because most of the forest institution during our times were in Dehradun. It's still there in Dehradun. So I was a little aware about service also. Though, I mean, I was not very much keen to join the service, but I came into the service. The best thing about the service is that it's a mix of both office work as well as field work. It gives you very long period of working in the field. Field means in the forest area. So you can remain in the field for quite long years, and that is one thing. So if you are not a person of office type person, means if you want some outdoor kind of activities in your job, then probably this is the best service. Uh, you can go to the forest area and you can spend the time there. You can pursue few hobbies also. You can develop few hobbies also, because once you are in forest area, it's not that the daily you are doing some running after poacher or doing some felling and all. You get lots of time to roam inside the forest area, so you can develop few hobbies. And if you're having hobbies of those kinds like bird watching and photography and all, you can pursue those in this service. It's a technical service also. Um, we are considered as a technical department because forestry, wildlife, these are all technical subjects, require lots of understanding and knowledge. Um, and it has now it has international ramification also. So the scope is very wide. So if you are a person who is a little bit interested in academics, it again opens a lots of doors to you. You can get lots of knowledge, can gather lots of knowledge, and the scope is very wide. So in field, it gives opportunity. In academic, it gives lots of opportunity. And uh, and in terms of, I mean, if you're coming to bureaucracy, surely you also look for power. There's no shying from the fact that you look for a good life and good status in society. Power, we don't understand the word power at this point in time. Power is a very hollow word. but we all feel that should be powerful. Okay, and if you're working in government service, should be powerful. So again, this service offers a good status. Being an all India service, it's a good, offers you a good status, uh, good remuneration, good good power, in a sense that under the act you have been given power to catch the poachers and culprits, and there are few judicial powers also given to you. Okay, you can compound the cases, you can release the person, kind of thing. But they're good mix of police and judicial power. So if you are working in field and looking for these kind of things, status, reputation, power, it offers you. It offers you that nature. If you want to work with people, again, it gives you lots of opportunity, because and especially with those people who are marginalized people. Normally, these are those people where to whom the district administration also do not reach. These people expect forest department to reach them first. And forest department normally works well with them. So it also gives you opportunity, because we have formed different committees, so we get opportunity institutionally to work with these people. So if you are of that kind that you love to work with people, you love to sit with them, talk with them, and work for their benefit, this service offers you that also. So in every aspect of the service life, it offers you very good things. It offers you all, and you can pick your choice. And uh, for me personally, that I love to be in every place. I got the opportunity to work in Cheetah project, and I feel proud to be, I mean, the first IFS officer to be handling Cheetah. so so I'm there in Kuno National Park from the very first day when Cheetah was brought, and that is one of the thing which I feel I feel I felt that I feel proud about. That's similarly, there are many things which has happened personally in my life, and I now feel that after 25 years of service now, I feel that it's quite a good service, and you enjoy in this service. Only things that you should know how to enjoy in this service. I don't know whether
Right,
I
sir.
gave the right answer, but I just answered.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, can you please share your views on prey translocations? Like there's lots of
Yeah,
thing about
I couldn't
translocating the
hear.
prey.
I could not.
Prey
I could not answer.
translocation.
Prey translocation. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's the thing. Personally, I'm dealing. See, there is a low prey density in Kuno National Park, as well as the cheetahs inside big enclosures, and they require lots of prey. So to increase the prey density in Kuno National Park, we are bringing prey from other tiger reserve or national park. Kuno, personally for Kuno, we are bringing prey cheetahs, mainly cheetahs from Painch National Park, which is 800 square kilometer away from Kuno. Okay, so we are capturing cheetal in Painch National Park. We are putting them in vehicle and bringing them in Kuno National Park without any casualty. This is the kind of expertise which the forest department has acquired over a period of time. So, and by this way, and why the tiger population is increasing, why the carnivore population is increasing, because at least in Madhya Pradesh, we are managing the prey. We are shifting the prey from one national park to another national park, especially the cheetal. And then not only cheetal, means we have shifted Barasinga from earlier Barasinga used to be only in Kana National Park, the this swamp deer, we call it the hard land swamp deer. Now it has been shifted to Satpura Tiger Reserve as well as to Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. Now we are having 3 tiger reserve having swamp deer population. Similarly, Gaur, Indian bison, has been shifted from Kanha to Bandhavgarh National Park and now to Sanjay National Park also, from Satpura to Sanjay National Park. So we are shifting. Bison is a huge animal, 1,000 kilogram, 1 ton animal, and we are shifting 50 bison from one national park to another national park within a period of a month or so. So forest department has acquired huge expertise. And it's totally scientific. I mean, using modern equipments, modern medicine, and we are transporting from one place to another place without any casualties. So bison was shifted, I think, if I remember correctly, just 6 months back. Bisons was shifted to Sanjay National Park. I think 50 bisons were shifted without any casualty. Cheetal, so we are regularly shifting. Right? Kuno from Page in Kuno, we are receiving every week. We are receiving a vehicle carrying cheetal. Barasinga, we are shifted. So we are shifting. Tiger, we have reintroduced in Panna National Park. We have reintroduced in Sariska. We have reintroduced. We try to reintroduce in Satkosia and Odisha. We are planned to send tiger to Cambodia also. So we got forest department now has got expertise in shifting prey from one place to another place, and it's not crude shifting. It is based and using scientific methods and technology with modern equipments and the best medicine available.
But sir, is it justified? Like, shouldn't we augment the prey within the national park or the wildlife sanctuary?
Let's see, when you are actively managing the wildlife, actively management means is when you are supposed to shift, you're having only Barasinga at one place. Now what is the best method for you? You should have 2-3 population at least of Barasinga at different places. So you need to shift them from one place to another place. Otherwise, Barasinga will never reach from Kana to Satpura or Kana to Bandhavgarh. They are far off places, cannot go. So you need to shift. Now, if you are shifting tiger or a big carnivore from one place to another place, the prey population is low. The prey population will take lots of time for itself to improve. So you can supplement the prey population from another area to this area. These are active wildlife management, proactive wildlife management you need to do to conserve a wild species like the gods, Indian bison. We say that only 2-3 places where Indian bison is there. Now, if you can expand the area of Indian bison by taking it from one place to another place without disturbing the new place much, you should do it. That's the active wildlife management we are doing. I don't think so any disadvantage or any loss in this.
Okay, sir. Like, sir, we read a lot of articles. So there it is written,
Yeah.
we should naturally augment the prey base in a given area because it is not sustainable to always translocate the prey.
Like, we have not yet seen the unsustainability of translocating prey from one park to another park. See, newspaper, anybody can write anything, but where are the facts? If you can quote some facts, then probably I can discuss. Otherwise, we are doing it. We're doing it for quite number of years now, and we are not found it unsustainable at all.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
So what is the status of draft national policy on forest 2018, sir?
still, it's a draft.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, one question related is also about the new working plan that has come. Sir, basics, theoretical part we all are aware, but how exactly it is getting implemented differently on the field?
I was a member of that working plan committee who was there too. So, no, there is not, basically there is no change as such. I mean, there are only improvement of that earlier 2014 working plan code, but no basic changes have been proposed in working plan. So on in field, I think there should not be any problem in changing the field practices. There is no major change as such. There are only some survey methods which have been changed. Otherwise, there is no major change.
Thank you.
Thank you. राजू जी हो गया 3 घंटा, थक गया हूँ.
जी 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 तो मतलब औपचारिकता पूरी करने के लिए मैं आपका बहुत बहुत आभार प्रकट करता हूँ यहाँ पर। और आपने सही में मतलब आपका पेशेंस भी है और आपका इंटरेस्ट भी है। तो हर साल आप ये लेक्चर करते हैं। अगर बीच में अगर आगे आवश्यकता पड़ी तो फिर एक बार हम लोग आपका लेक्चर रिपीट कराएंगे। आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मुझे लगता है कि स्टूडेंट्स के सारे क्वेश्चन भी हो गए और सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने भी इसको एंजॉय किया होगा। तो बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और सब कैंडिडेट्स आपको जब समय मिले तो पुनः जाएं, एक बार विजिट करें, चीता प्रोजेक्ट देखें।
बिल्कुल।
धन्यवाद। जी 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 धन्यवाद धन्यवाद उत्तम जी।
Thank you very much, and best of luck to all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.